What if Harry swallowed a bezor as a baby and became immune to every poison in Cursed Chapter 1, the boy who couldn't be cursed baby Harry Potter was having the time of his life. At 15 months old, crawling was old news, and walking was his new superpower. While his mum prepared dinner downstairs, Harry had managed to push open the bedroom door his dad had left slightly ajar. Freedom. The bedroom was a treasure trove of fascinating objects for a curious toddler. Harry giggled as he pulled himself up using the bedside table, his green eyes fixed on his dad's emergency kit. James Potter, ever the cautious Auror, kept a small wooden box of essential potions and magical remedies for unexpected situations. Harry's tiny fingers worked at the unlocked latch. James had never expected his son to reach the bedside table so soon. The box popped open, revealing colorful vials and strange objects. One smooth, round stone caught Harry's attention. It looked like the pebbles he'd played with in the garden, but shinier. "What's that you've got, Harry?" Lily's voice called from the doorway. She rushed over as Harry popped the strange rock into his mouth. "No. Harry, spit that out." Lily reached him in 3 quick strides, fingers gently prying at his mouth, but it was too late. Harry had swallowed the bezor whole. "James!" Lily shouted, panic rising. "Harry just swallowed something from your kit." James thundered up the stairs, wand already drawn. "What was it?" "A stone of some kind," Lily said, checking Harry's mouth for any remaining pieces. James peered into his kit, then let out a relieved breath. "It's just a bezor. It's harmless, actually, it's an antidote to most poisons. Healers say they dissolve completely. He'll be fine." Lily held Harry close, her heart still racing. "You're sure?" "Positive," James assured her, ruffling Harry's unruly black hair. "Though maybe we should child-proof my Auror equipment a bit better, yeah." Harry just giggled, completely unaware that the strange stone now dissolving in his system would forever change his destiny. 3 days later, on Halloween night, Harry was tucked into bed after an evening of James entertaining him with colorful puffs of smoke from his wand. "He'll be a natural flyer," James said proudly as Lily came to collect their son for bedtime. "Did you see how he tried to catch the smoke? Seeker reflexes already." Lily rolled her eyes fondly at her husband's Quidditch obsession. "He's not getting on a broom until he's at least 3, and that's final." As she carried Harry upstairs, she felt an odd shiver. The protection spells around their cottage remained intact, but something felt wrong. She held Harry a little tighter and whispered to him as she tucked him into his crib. "Mummy loves you. Daddy loves you. You are so loved, Harry." The words felt strangely significant, though she couldn't say why. She kissed his forehead and turned on the magical mobile above his crib, tiny golden snitches that flew in gentle circles, emitting soft light. Downstairs, she heard James drop his wand on the sofa, a habit she'd scolded him for repeatedly. Before she could call down to remind him about constant vigilance, the front door burst open. "Lily, take Harry, and go. It's him. Go. Run. I'll hold him off." The next few minutes passed in a blur of terror. James, wandless, falling to a flash of green light. Lily barricading herself in the nursery, desperately wishing for her wand, which lay downstairs on the kitchen counter. The door blasting open. A tall, hooded figure with gleaming red eyes. "Not Harry, please not Harry." Lily begged, standing in front of the crib. "Stand aside, you silly girl, stand aside now," the cold voice commanded. "Not Harry, please no, take me, kill me instead, this is my last warning, not Harry. Please, have mercy, have mercy. Not Harry. Not Harry. Please, I'll do anything. Stand aside, girl." Lily remained in front of her son, arms spread wide. She felt the killing curse hit her chest before she saw the green light, her last thought a fierce, primal surge of love for her son. Voldemort approached the crib, looking down at the child who supposedly threatened his power. The boy wasn't crying, merely staring up at him with curious green eyes, so like his mother's. Avada Kedavra. Green light erupted from his wand, striking the child's forehead, but instead of killing him instantly, something extraordinary happened. The light seemed to hesitate, swirling around the boy, who finally began to cry from the pain of a lightning-shaped cut appearing on his forehead. Then, impossibly, the killing curse rebounded, slamming back into Voldemort with the force of a physical blow. Pain beyond imagination tore through him as his body disintegrated, his soul ripped from its physical anchor. The cottage shook with the magical backlash, the ceiling beginning to collapse. As Voldemort's wraith fled, the protection created by Lily's sacrifice, reinforced by the dissolved bezor in Harry's system, settled into the boy's blood, bones, and magic. In his crib, surrounded by debris, Harry Potter cried from the pain in his forehead, unaware that he had just become the boy who lived, and the boy who couldn't be cursed. 6 years later, 7-year-old Harry Potter crouched in the garden shed behind number 4, Privet Drive, hiding from Dudley and his friends. Their favorite game, Harry hunting, had taken a darker turn lately. Last week, Piers Polkiss had brought a pocket knife, suggesting they just nick him a little, to teach Harry a lesson for being a freak. Harry had escaped by somehow ending up on the school roof, another freakish incident that had earned him a week locked in his cupboard. The shed door rattled. Harry held his breath. "I know you're in there, Potter," Dudley called. "Malcolm's got firecrackers today. We're gonna see if your freak skin burns." Harry pressed himself deeper into the corner behind Uncle Vernon's lawnmower. The door burst open, and Dudley's gang poured in, Malcolm waving a package of firecrackers triumphantly. "Got you." Piers grabbed Harry's arm, yanking him forward. "Hold him down." Harry struggled as two boys pinned his arms while Malcolm lit a firecracker with the lighter he'd stolen from his older brother. "This'll be brilliant," Dudley grinned, his piggy eyes gleaming with malice. "Throw it at his face, Malcolm." Malcolm tossed the lit firecracker directly at Harry's chest. Harry closed his eyes, bracing for pain. The firecracker exploded against his t-shirt with a deafening bang. But Harry felt nothing. No pain, no burning, not even heat. He opened his eyes to see the other boys staring in shock. His shirt had a singed hole, but his skin beneath was completely unmarked. "What the?" Malcolm stepped back. "That should have burned him." "Do it again," Dudley demanded, his face flushing with anger. Malcolm lit another firecracker and this time aimed directly at Harry's exposed arm. Again, the explosion made Harry flinch, but left him completely unharmed. "I told you he's a freak," Dudley shouted, suddenly afraid. "Let's go." The gang fled, leaving Harry alone in the shed, staring at his unblemished skin where burns should have been. This wasn't the first strange incident. Last month, Aunt Petunia had forced him to clean the bathroom with caustic chemicals that had made her own hands red and raw when she'd forgotten her rubber gloves. Harry's hands had remained perfectly fine, despite working without protection. And there was the time Uncle Vernon had grabbed the hot frying pan in a rage and pressed it against Harry's arm after he'd accidentally burned the bacon. The pan had left soot marks on his skin that washed away, revealing healthy skin underneath. Harry examined himself carefully. The only mark on his body that never healed was the lightning-shaped scar on his forehead, the one Aunt Petunia claimed he'd gotten in the car crash that killed his parents. Whatever was happening, Harry knew better than to mention it to the Dursleys. They already called him a freak for the other strange things that happened around him. This would just give them another reason to fear and hate him. But alone in the shed, Harry allowed himself a small, secret smile. The Dursleys could lock him in his cupboard, starve him, and make him do endless chores, but somehow, he was protected from physical harm. It was like having an invisible shield. A shield that was his and his alone. Harry's immunity to physical harm continued to manifest in increasingly obvious ways. By age 10, Dudley's gang had given up trying to hurt him directly, spreading rumors instead that he was some kind of demon or monster. The Dursleys grew more frightened with each incident. When Harry suffered no ill effects from accidentally drinking spoiled milk that had Vernon running to the bathroom all night. When he emerged completely dry after Dudley pushed him into the deep end of the pool on a school trip, despite not knowing how to swim. When he walked through a patch of stinging nettles barefoot on a forced garden weeding session and showed no reaction whatsoever. "That boy isn't natural," Vernon would mutter to Petunia when they thought Harry couldn't hear. Always knew those freakish parents of his would pass down something unnatural. The Dursleys' fear manifested as even harsher treatment, as if they were trying to compensate for their inability to physically hurt him. Harry was locked in his cupboard more frequently, given less food, assigned more chores, and verbally belittled at every opportunity. But Harry had developed a resilience that went beyond his physical immunity. He'd learned to find joy in small moments of freedom, to treasure the books he sneaked from school, and to believe that someday, somehow, his life would change. That change came with a letter, or rather, hundreds of letters, culminating in a giant man named Hagrid bursting through the door of a miserable shack on a rocky island during a thunderstorm. "Harry, you're a wizard." Those 4 simple words transformed everything Harry thought he knew about himself. His parents hadn't died in a car crash, they'd been murdered by a dark wizard named Voldemort. His lightning scar wasn't from broken glass but from surviving a killing curse. And the strange things that happened around him, including his immunity to harm, were magic. "Yeah, survived when no one else ever has," Hagrid told him, his beetle-black eyes shining with emotion. "That's why you're famous, Harry. The boy who lived." Harry absorbed this information with a mixture of shock and vindication. "So, the weird things that happen to me, like when things don't hurt me when they should, that's because I'm a wizard?" Hagrid frowned slightly. "What do ya mean, things don't hurt ya?" Harry explained about the firecrackers, the chemicals, the hot pan, and dozens of other incidents. Hagrid's eyes grew progressively wider. "Blimey, Harry. That's not normal, even for wizards. I mean, we're hardier than muggles, heal faster and all, but what you're describing." He scratched his wild beard thoughtfully. "Dumbledore will want to know about this. He always said there was something special about how you survived that night." "Who's Dumbledore?" "Greatest wizard alive. Headmaster of Hogwarts, that's the school you're going to. He's the one who left ya with these." Hagrid glared at the Dursleys, who were cowering in the corner. "These people." Harry felt a surge of anger at this Dumbledore person for leaving him with the Dursleys, but it was quickly overwhelmed by excitement about attending a school for wizards. A place where he might finally belong. "When do we leave?" Harry asked, already mentally packing his meager possessions. Hagrid beamed. "Right now, if ya like. Got ter get your school supplies in Diagon Alley. Ye'll love it there, Harry, and wait till ya see Gringotts, the wizard bank. Run by goblins, it is." Harry smiled, properly smiled, for what felt like the first time in years. Whatever this immunity was that protected him, wherever it came from, he was finally going to learn about it. He was going to learn about magic. About his parents. About himself. He was going to Hogwarts. Diagon Alley was everything Harry had never dared to imagine, bustling with witches and wizards in flowing robes, shops selling cauldrons and broomsticks and magic wands, owls soaring overhead delivering packages and letters. But more astonishing than the magical surroundings was the way people reacted to him. They recognized him. Strangers shook his hand in the leaky cauldron, a tearful which thanked him for what he'd done, and Professor Quirrell, a nervous man in a purple turban who would be teaching defense against the dark arts, actually trembled when introducing himself. Fascinating subject, Quirrell stammered when Harry asked about his class. "And not that you need it, P.P. Potter." His eyes lingered on Harry's scar, and Harry felt an unexpected twinge of pain. The most unsettling encounter, however, came at Ollivander's wand shop. The pale-eyed wand-maker examined Harry with unnerving intensity before measuring him and presenting wand after wand for him to try. Curious, Ollivander muttered when a holly and phoenix feather wand finally chose Harry in a shower of red and gold sparks. Very curious. Sorry, said Harry, but what's curious? I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. Every single wand. It so happens that the phoenix whose tail feather is in your wand, gave another feather, just one other. It is very curious indeed that you should be destined for this wand when its brother, why, its brother gave you that scar. Harry swallowed, suddenly cold despite the warm shop. And who owned that wand? We do not speak his name. The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter. I think we must expect great things from you. After all, he who must not be named did great things, terrible, yes, but great. As Hagrid led him from the shop, Harry noticed the giant man watching him with a strange expression. What is it, Hagrid? Nothing, just, there's something different about Harry. Ollivander saw it too. It's not just the scar or the fame. There's a resilience to your magic. I felt it when the wand chose Almost like. Like what? Hagrid shook his head. Like you're protected somehow. Beyond what your mum did for that night. He patted Harry's shoulder gently. Don't worry about it now. Let's get an ice cream, That night in his cupboard, the last night he'd ever have to sleep there, Harry examined his new wand by the dim light filtering through the vent. Brother to Voldemort's wand. Chosen for a boy immune to harm. What did it mean? I'll find out at Hogwarts, he whispered to himself. For the first time in his life, Harry Potter had something incredible to look forward to. Platform 9 3/4 was packed with students and parents when Harry arrived, pushing his trolley nervously. Thanks to a family of redheads, the Weasleys, he'd managed to find the hidden entrance, running through what appeared to be a solid brick wall. After stowing his trunk with help from the Weasley twins, Fred and George, Harry found an empty compartment and settled in, gazing out the window at families saying goodbye. A pang of loneliness hit him, watching mothers hugging their children, fathers giving last-minute advice. The compartment door slid open, and the youngest Weasley boy peered in. Anyone sitting there? He asked, pointing to the seat opposite Harry. Everywhere else is full. Go ahead, Harry invited, relieved to have company. I'm Ron. Ron Weasley, the boy said, settling in. Harry Potter. Ron's eyes widened. So it's true. Do you really have the, He pointed at his own forehead. Harry lifted his fringe to reveal the lightning scar. Wicked, Ron breathed. And is it true you lived with muggles? What were they like? Horrible, Harry said. Well, not all muggles. Just my aunt, uncle, and cousin. They hate magic. Mental, Ron shook his head. Hey, want to see something cool? My brother gave me a spell to turn my rat yellow. He pulled out a worn wand and a sleeping rat from his pocket. Before Ron could attempt the spell, the compartment door opened again. A girl with bushy brown hair and rather large front teeth stood there, already wearing her Hogwarts robes. Has anyone seen a toad? A boy named Neville's lost one. Her voice was bossy and matter-of-fact. No toads here, Ron said, annoyed at the interruption. The girl's attention shifted to the wand in Ron's hand. Oh, are you doing magic? Let's see, then. Ron looked taken aback but cleared his throat. Sunshine, daisies, buttermellow, turn this stupid, fat rat yellow. He waved his wand, but nothing happened. Are you sure that's a real spell? The girl asked skeptically. It's not very good, is it? I've tried a few simple spells just for practice and they've all worked for me. She sat down next to Harry. I'm Hermione Granger, by the way. And you are? Ron Weasley. Harry Potter. Hermione's eyes widened. Are you really? I know all about you, of course, I got a few extra books for background reading, and you're in modern magical history and the rise and fall of the dark arts and great wizarding events of the 20th century. I am. Harry felt dazed. Goodness, didn't you know? I'd have found out everything I could if it was me, she said. Do either of you know what house you'll be in? I've been asking around, and I hope I'm in Gryffindor. It sounds by far the best. Anyway, I'd better go look for Neville's toad. You two should change into your robes, I expect we'll be arriving soon. She left, closing the door behind her. Whatever house she's in, I hope I'm not in it, Ron muttered, putting his wand away. Mental, that one. My brothers say the spell was a joke anyway. Harry relaxed as Ron explained about the 4 Hogwarts houses and his family's history in Gryffindor. The conversation moved to Quidditch, wizard chess, and the strange assortment of sweets from the trolley which, including chocolate frogs with famous wizard cards and Bertie Bott's every flavor beans. When Harry bit into a suspicious-looking green bean, Ron warned, careful, could be bogey-flavored. But Harry chewed and swallowed without reaction. Tastes like grass, actually. Not bad. Ron watched, impressed, as Harry tried beans that made him grimace from the flavor but never spit one out. Blimey, you've got a stomach of steel. That last one was definitely sardine. Harry shrugged. Nothing seemed to affect him physically, not even disgustingly flavored candy. It was just another aspect of his strange immunity. Their peaceful journey was interrupted when the compartment door slid open yet again. 3 boys entered, a pale, pointed-faced boy flanked by 2 large, mean-looking companions. Is it true? The pale boy asked. They're saying all down the train that Harry Potter's in this compartment. So it's you, is it? Yes, Harry answered, sizing up the newcomers. This is Crabbe and Goyle, the boy said casually. And my name's Malfoy, Draco Malfoy. Ron gave a slight cough, which might have been hiding a snigger. Draco Malfoy shot him a look. Think my name's funny, do you? No need to ask who you are. My father told me all the Weasleys have red hair, freckles, and more children than they can afford. He turned back to Harry. You'll soon find out some wizarding families are much better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there. He extended his hand to shake Harry's, but Harry didn't take it. I think I can tell who the wrong sort are for myself, thanks, he said coolly. Draco Malfoy's pale cheeks flushed pink. I'd be careful if I were you, Potter. Unless you're a bit politer, you'll go the same way as your parents. They didn't know what was good for them either. You hang around with riffraff like the Weasleys, and it'll rub off on you. Both Harry and Ron stood up. Ron's face was as red as his hair. Say that again, Ron challenged. Oh, you're going to fight us, are you? Malfoy sneered. Harry felt strangely calm. After years of dealing with Dudley's gang, these 3 didn't scare him. Unless you get out now, he said, more confidently than he felt. Goyle reached for a chocolate frog next to Ron, and suddenly howled in pain. Scabbers, Ron's rat, was hanging from his finger by sharp little teeth. Goyle swung Scabbers round and round, howling, until the rat finally flew off and hit the window. The 3 boys disappeared at once. Hermione Granger reappeared, looking disapproving. What has been going on? Just a little disagreement, Harry said, sitting back down. But internally, he was glowing with satisfaction. For the first time in his life, he'd stood up for himself, and for a friend. The sorting ceremony was unlike anything Harry had imagined. The great hall's enchanted ceiling reflected a starry night sky, thousands of candles floated in midair, and 4 long tables were filled with students watching as first years were called one by one to sit on a stool and place the ancient sorting hat on their heads. When it was Harry's turn, whispers broke out across the hall. Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter? The hat dropped over his eyes, and a small voice spoke in his ear. Difficult. Very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. There's talent, oh my goodness, yes, and a nice thirst to prove yourself, now that's interesting. But what's this? The hat seemed to pause, considering something unexpected. Curious magic you carry, Mr. Potter. An immunity I've not seen in centuries. Not since, well. Fascinating. This changes things, doesn't it? With protection like yours, you could do well in Slytherin, their cunning would complement your natural defenses. Harry gripped the edges of the stool and thought, not Slytherin, not Slytherin. Not Slytherin, eh? Are you sure? With your immunity and their ambition, you could be truly great, you know, it's all here in your head, and Slytherin will help you on the way to greatness, no doubt about that, no? Well, if you're sure, better be Gryffindor. The Gryffindor table exploded with cheers. Harry, relieved, joined his new housemates, including the Weasley twins who were chanting, "We got Potter. We got Potter." As the feast appeared magically on the golden plates, Harry found himself genuinely happy for the first time he could remember. He caught Professor McGonagall's eye and she gave him a rare smile. Then he glanced at the high table and noticed a hook-nosed, black-haired professor staring at him with an expression of intense dislike. "Who's that teacher talking to Professor Quirrell?" he asked Percy Weasley, Ron's older brother. "That's Professor Snape. Head of Slytherin House. Teaches potions, but everyone knows he's after Quirrell's job. Knows an awful lot about the dark arts, Snape." As Harry watched, Snape's eyes bored into his, and a sharp, hot pain shot across the scar on his forehead. It was the first real pain Harry had felt in years, and it took him by surprise. Ouch! He clapped a hand to his head. "What is it?" asked Percy. "And nothing." The pain had gone as quickly as it had come. Later that night, as Harry settled into his four-poster bed in Gryffindor Tower, he couldn't help wondering about the hat's words. What immunity was it talking about? And why had his scar hurt when he looked at Snape? Whatever was happening, Harry felt certain of one thing as he drifted off to sleep: Hogwarts held the answers he'd been seeking his entire life. Potions class provided the first real test of Harry's strange immunity. In the dungeon classroom, Professor Snape made his dislike of Harry abundantly clear from the first roll call. "Ah, yes," he said softly, "Harry Potter. Our new celebrity." After belittling Harry with impossible questions about advanced potions ingredients, Snape paired the students for their first practical lesson, a simple potion to cure boils. "Potter." Snape snapped halfway through the class. "What color should your potion be at this stage?" Harry glanced at his cauldron, where the liquid was a shade too dark. "Light blue, sir." "And what color is yours?" "Navy blue, sir." "Clearly, fame isn't everything," Snape sneered. "Test it." Harry blinked. "Sir." "You heard me, Potter. If you're so confident in your brewing abilities, test your potion. 1 drop on your hand should be sufficient." Hermione gasped from across the room. "Professor, the instructions say an improperly brewed potion could cause severe..." "Silence, Miss Granger." Snape barked. "Well, Potter? We're waiting." The classroom went deathly quiet. Every student knew an improperly brewed boil-cure potion could cause painful boils instead of curing them. Snape was essentially asking Harry to harm himself. Harry met Snape's eyes steadily. Then, without breaking eye contact, he dipped his finger into the potion and smeared a generous amount across the back of his hand. Nothing happened. No boils, no pain, not even a tingle. His skin remained perfectly unmarked. Snape's face contorted with surprise, then suspicion. "Did you use a protection charm, Potter? That's cheating." "No, sir," Harry replied truthfully. "I don't know any protection charms yet." "Impossible," Snape muttered, examining Harry's hand. "Your potion is clearly incorrect." To prove his point, Snape used a dropper to place a tiny amount of Harry's potion onto a piece of parchment. The parchment immediately erupted in angry red boils. The class gasped collectively. Snape's eyes narrowed to slits. "Stay after class, Potter." When the lesson ended, Harry approached Snape's desk, mentally preparing for punishment. But instead of detention, Snape asked a question that took Harry completely by surprise. "Have you always been resistant to harm, Potter?" Harry hesitated, then nodded. "For as long as I can remember, sir. Things that should hurt me just don't." Snape studied him with an unreadable expression. "Your mother was exceptionally gifted at protection charms and potions. Perhaps." He stopped himself, then said curtly, "Tell no one about this ability. There are those who would seek to test its limits in ways you cannot imagine. Now get out." Harry left, puzzled by the interaction. Had Snape just tried to protect him? And what did his mother have to do with his immunity? The mystery deepened in the following weeks. In Charms class, when Harry accidentally pointed his wand at himself while practicing the levitation charm, he rose gently into the air instead of experiencing the painful side effects Professor Flitwick had warned about. In herbology, venomous tentacula leaves that caused welts on other students' skin merely tickled Harry's palms. Even in flying lessons, when he took a nasty fall from his broom while showing off for Ron, he bounced slightly and stood up completely unhurt. Each incident drew attention Harry didn't want: curious glances from classmates, whispers in the corridors, and increasingly pointed questions from Hermione. "It's not normal, Harry," she insisted one evening in the common room. "I've been researching magical protections, and nothing explains what happens with you. Even the most powerful shield charms have limitations." "Maybe it's connected to how I survived Voldemort," Harry suggested, ignoring Ron's wince at the name. "That's what I thought too, but..." Hermione bit her lip. "The killing curse doesn't just harm you physically, it separates your soul from your body. No physical immunity should stop that." Ron, who'd been listening quietly, suddenly sat up straighter. "What if it's not the same thing that saved him from you-know-who? What if it's something else entirely?" Harry and Hermione looked at him, surprised. "Think about it," Ron continued. "Everyone talks about how Harry survived the killing curse because of his mum's protection. But what if this immunity thing is different? What if it's why Quirrell's jinx couldn't knock Harry off his broom at the Quidditch match? What if it's why Snape's potion didn't hurt him?" Hermione's eyes widened. "Ron, that's brilliant. Two separate protections." Harry wasn't sure what to think. All he knew was that his life at Hogwarts was becoming increasingly complicated, between classes, Quidditch practice, avoiding Filch after curfew, and now the mystery of the three-headed dog they'd accidentally discovered guarding a trapdoor on the third floor. "Whatever it is, we need to be careful," Harry said, lowering his voice. "Snape warned me not to tell anyone about this. He said there are people who would want to test how far it goes." "Too late for that," Ron muttered, nodding toward a group of older Slytherins watching them from across the Great Hall. "Pretty sure the whole school knows something's off about you by now." He wasn't wrong. The following day, in defense against the dark arts, Professor Quirrell seemed especially interested in Harry, calling him to the front of the class to demonstrate a simple shield charm. "Most F first years C can't produce an effective S shield," Quirrell explained. But let's see if Mr. P. Potter is as exceptional as they say." When Harry failed to produce more than a faint shimmer with the charm, Quirrell surprised everyone by casting a mild stinging hex directly at Harry. The hex hit Harry square in the chest, and dissipated completely. Fascinating," Quirrell murmured, his stutter mysteriously less pronounced. No shield charm, yet the hex had no effect. His pale eyes fixed on Harry with an intensity that made Harry's scar burn. "I wonder what other spells you might naturally resist, Mr. Potter." After that, Harry noticed Quirrell watching him constantly, during meals, in the corridors, even through windows when Harry practiced Quidditch. It was unsettling, especially paired with the persistent pain in his scar whenever the professor was nearby. "I don't trust him," Harry told Ron and Hermione as they researched Nicholas Flamel in the library. "There's something off about him." Because he stutters? Ron asked skeptically. No, because. Harry hesitated. Because my scar hurts when he's around. And he's too interested in my immunity. Hermione closed her book with a thump. I still think Snape is the one we should worry about. He was trying to get past that three-headed dog on Halloween, remember? He's after whatever it's guarding. But what if they're working together? Harry suggested. What if they both want whatever's under that trapdoor? Before they could discuss further, Hagrid appeared from behind a bookshelf, hiding something behind his back. What are you three up to? He asked suspiciously. You're not still looking for Nicholas Flamel, are ya? We found out who he is ages ago, Ron said importantly. And we know what that dog's guarding, it's a philosopher's SH. Hagrid looked around quickly. Don, go shoutin' about it. Come and see me later. I'm not promisin' I'll tell ya anythin', but Don, go rabbitin' about it in here. As Hagrid shuffled away, Hermione grabbed the book he'd been hiding. Dragons. Hagrid was looking up information on dragons. That afternoon, they discovered why. Hagrid had somehow acquired a dragon egg, which he was keeping in his wooden hut, apparently oblivious to the fire hazard. Isn't it beautiful? Hagrid crooned, stoking the fire under the enormous black egg. Norwegian Ridgeback, they are. Rare, them. Hagrid, you live in a wooden house, Hermione pointed out. But Hagrid wasn't listening. He was too busy explaining how he'd won the egg from a stranger in a pub, who'd seemed unusually interested in Fluffy, the three-headed dog guarding the Philosopher's Stone. He wanted to know how to handle Fluffy, so I told him, the trick with any beast is to know how to calm it. Take Fluffy, for example, play him a bit music and he falls straight to sleep. Hagrid looked horrified at what he'd just revealed. I shouldn't ha' told ya that. Forget I said it. But the three friends exchanged significant looks. Someone had deliberately gotten Hagrid drunk to extract information about Fluffy, and now they knew music was the key to getting past the Guardian. Their concerns about the stone temporarily took a backseat to the immediate problem of Hagrid's dragon, which hatched a week later and grew with alarming speed. When the dragon, named Norbert, bit Ron's hand, causing it to swell to twice its normal size, they convinced Hagrid to send the creature to Romania with Charlie Weasley's Dragon Keeper friends. The plan went sideways when Malfoy discovered the dragon and reported them, resulting in detention for Harry, Hermione, and Neville, who tried to warn them. Their punishment, accompanying Hagrid into the Forbidden Forest to investigate something killing unicorns. Split into two groups, Harry found himself paired with Malfoy and Fawn, Hagrid's boarhound. Deep in the forest, they discovered a unicorn lying dead on the ground, and a hooded figure drinking its blood. Malfoy screamed and bolted with Fawn, but Harry remained frozen in place as white-hot pain seared across his scar, worse than he'd ever experienced. The hooded figure raised its head and looked straight at Harry, silvery unicorn blood dribbling down its front. Harry's immunity didn't help with the pain in his scar. He staggered backward as the figure approached, only to be saved by the arrival of a centaur named Firenze, who drove the creature away and carried Harry back to Hagrid. That was Voldemort, Harry told his friends later in the common room. Firenze said unicorn blood keeps you alive even if you're an inch from death, but at a terrible price. Voldemort's trying to stay alive until he can steal the stone and make the elixir of life. So all this time we've been worried about Snape or Quirrell, Hermione whispered, but it's actually you-know-who wants the stone. And he's at Hogwarts, Ron added, looking pale. Right now. Harry nodded grimly. Which means we need to get to it first. Their opportunity came during final exams week. As they exited their History of Magic exam, Harry suddenly realized something crucial. We've been so stupid, he told Ron and Hermione. The stranger who gave Hagrid the dragon egg, that was either Snape or Quirrell. And Hagrid told them how to get past Fluffy. They raced to Hagrid's hut, where their worst fears were confirmed. The stranger who'd given Hagrid the egg had been unusually interested in Hogwarts security measures, and Hagrid, blinded by his desire for a dragon, had happily shared everything he knew. He must have been from the school. Hagrid defended himself. He knew about Fluffy, after all. Back in the castle, the trio made a desperate attempt to warn Dumbledore, only to discover the headmaster had been called away to London. He's gone. Now. Harry couldn't believe their bad luck. But this is important. It's about the Philosopher's Stone. Professor McGonagall dropped the books she was carrying. How do you know? Someone's going to try and steal it. Today. McGonagall looked at them with a mixture of shock and suspicion. I don't know how you found out about the stone, but rest assured, no one can possibly steal it. It's too well protected. But Professor Potter, I know what I'm talking about. Now go outside and enjoy the sunshine. Realizing the adults wouldn't help, Harry made a decision. I'm going through that trapdoor tonight. I can't let Voldemort get the stone. You're mad. Ron exclaimed. I'll go with you, Hermione said firmly. Ron sighed. Well, you can't stop Voldemort without me, can you? That night, as they prepared to sneak out under Harry's invisibility cloak, they encountered their first obstacle, Neville Longbottom. You can't go out, he insisted, blocking the portrait hole. You'll get Gryffindor in trouble again. In the end, it took a regretful full-body bind curse from Hermione to get past their well-meaning friend. Then it was off to the third-floor corridor, where Fluffy awaited. They arrived to find the door already open and an enchanted harp playing softly, lulling the massive three-headed dog to sleep. Snape or Quirrell's already been here, Harry whispered. Come on, before the music stops. They slipped past the sleeping dog and through the trapdoor, landing on something soft in the darkness below, a gigantic plant with snaking tendrils that immediately began wrapping around their legs. It's Devil's Snare. Hermione identified. We need fire. As Ron struggled and became more entangled, Harry remained perfectly calm, noting that the plant seemed unable to constrict him properly. Hermione, use your bluebell flames. The blue fire drove the plant away from Ron and Hermione, but Harry noticed he hadn't needed the rescue. The Devil's Snare's grip on him had been ineffective from the start, another manifestation of his immunity. The next chamber contained flying keys and broomsticks. Harry, using his seeker skills, quickly captured the correct key, allowing them to proceed to a giant wizard's chessboard, where Ron took command. I need to be a knight, Ron decided, analyzing the board. Harry, you take the place of that bishop, and Hermione, you go there instead of that castle. Ron's strategic brilliance led them through the game, but victory came at a cost. He sacrificed himself to the White Queen so Harry could checkmate the king. Ron! Hermione screamed as he was knocked unconscious. Don't move. Harry commanded. We're still playing. He moved 3 spaces to the left. Checkmate. With the White King throwing down his crown, Harry and Hermione rushed to Ron's side. He's just knocked out, Harry determined. You stay with him. I'll go on. But Harry, there's no time, Hermione. I can handle whatever's next. Remember, things don't hurt me like they do other people. Reluctantly, Hermione agreed, hugging him tightly before he entered the next chamber alone. A foul smell greeted him, and an unconscious troll even larger than the one they'd faced on Halloween. Grateful he didn't have to fight it, Harry proceeded to the next chamber, where flames immediately sprang up, blocking both the entrance and exit. A table held 7 differently shaped bottles and a parchment with a logic puzzle. Harry read it carefully, then identified the smallest bottle as the one that would allow him to proceed through the black flames ahead. There was barely enough potion for one swallow. Taking a deep breath, Harry drank it, expecting the usual result, his immunity protecting him from any ill effects. To his surprise, he felt ice flood his body. It worked, he whispered, astonished. Not everything was blocked by his immunity, then. Stepping forward, he walked through the black flames completely unharmed, though whether from the potion or his natural protection, he couldn't tell. In the final chamber, Harry found neither Snape nor Voldemort, but Professor Quirrell, standing calmly before the mirror of Eriste. "You!" Harry gasped. Quirrell smiled, no trace of his stutter. "Me. I wondered if I'd be meeting you here, Potter. But I thought, Snape, Severus." Quirrell laughed coldly. "Yes, he does seem the type, doesn't he? Next to him, who would suspect P.P. Poor, St. stuttering P. Professor Quirrell?" With a snap of Quirrell's fingers, rope sprang out of thin air and wrapped around Harry, but unlike the devil's snare, these magical bonds held him fast. His immunity, it seemed, had limitations. "Now wait quietly, Potter, while I examine this mirror. It's the key to finding the stone." As Quirrell muttered to himself about seeing the stone in the mirror but not how to get it, Harry struggled against his bonds, trying to distract the professor. "I saw you and Snape in the forest, yes," Quirrell said idly. "He suspected me all along, kept trying to frighten me. As if he could, when I had Lord Voldemort on my side." A voice suddenly spoke, though Quirrell's lips weren't moving. "Use the boy. Use the boy." Quirrell rounded on Harry. "Yes, Potter, come here." He clapped his hands, and the ropes fell away. "Look in the mirror and tell me what you see." Harry walked toward the mirror, preparing to lie about whatever he saw. But as he gazed into the glass, he saw his reflection smile and put its hand in its pocket, pulling out a blood-red stone. His reflection winked and put the stone back, and Harry felt the real stone drop into his actual pocket. "Well?" Quirrell demanded impatiently. "What do you see?" "I see myself shaking hands with Dumbledore," Harry invented. "I've won the House Cup for Gryffindor." Quirrell cursed and pushed him aside, but then the disembodied voice spoke again. "He lies. He lies. Potter, come back here." Quirrell shouted. "Tell me the truth. What did you see?" The voice spoke once more. "Let me speak to him, face to face." "Master, you are not strong enough. I have strength enough, for this." Harry watched, frozen in horror, as Quirrell unwrapped his turban, turning slowly on the spot. Where the back of his head should have been, there was a face, chalk white with glaring red eyes and slits for nostrils, like a snake. "Harry Potter." It whispered. "See what I have become. Mere shadow and vapor. I have form only when I can share another's body, but there have always been those willing to let me into their hearts and minds. Unicorn blood has strengthened me, these past weeks. And once I have the elixir of life, I will be able to create a body of my own. Now, why don't you give me that stone in your pocket?" Harry stumbled backward, his scar burning with white-hot pain that his immunity couldn't block. "Don't be a fool," snarled Voldemort. "Better save your own life and join me, or you'll meet the same end as your parents. They died begging me for mercy." "Liar!" Harry shouted. "How touching!" Voldemort hissed. "I always value bravery." "Yes, boy, your parents were brave. I killed your father first, and he put up a courageous fight, but your mother needn't have died, she was trying to protect you. Now give me the stone, unless you want her to have died in vain." "Never." Harry sprang for the flame door, but Voldemort screamed, "Seize him," and Quirrell's hand closed on Harry's wrist. Immediately, needle-sharp pain seared through Harry's scar, but something unexpected happened where Quirrell touched his skin. Quirrell jerked his hand away, howling in agony. His fingers were blistering before their eyes. "Seize him! Seize him!" Voldemort shrieked again. Quirrell lunged, tackling Harry to the ground, hands closing around Harry's throat, but he screamed even louder and pulled away, his hands burned and raw. "Master, I cannot hold him, my hands, my hands." "Then kill him, fool, and be done," screeched Voldemort. Quirrell raised his wand for a killing curse, but Harry, acting on pure instinct, reached up and pressed his hands against Quirrell's face. The professor shrieked in agony as his skin blistered and burned beneath Harry's touch. Harry realized what was happening, Quirrell couldn't bear to touch him. His immunity wasn't just protecting him, it was actively harming his attacker. Harry lunged forward, grabbing Quirrell's arm, holding on as tightly as he could as the professor screamed and tried to throw him off. Through the pain in his scar, Harry heard Voldemort's furious, "Kill him! Kill him!" and Quirrell's agonized shrieks. He held on with all his might, even as his vision began to blur. Then, suddenly, hands were pulling him away from Quirrell, and Harry fell into darkness, the Philosopher's Stone still clutched tightly in his hand. Harry awoke in the hospital wing, sunlight streaming through the windows. Dumbledore was sitting beside his bed, his blue eyes twinkling. "Good afternoon, Harry," he said gently. "Sir." "The stone." It was Quirrell. "He's got the stone." "Calm yourself, dear boy, you're a little behind the times," Dumbledore said. "Quirrell does not have the stone." "Then who does?" "Nicholas and I have had a little chat and agreed it's best all around if the stone were to be destroyed." Harry listened as Dumbledore explained how he'd arrived just in time to pull Quirrell off Harry, though he emphasized that Harry had done very well on his own. When Harry asked why Quirrell couldn't touch him, Dumbledore's explanation resonated deeply. "Your mother died to save you, Harry. If there is one thing Voldemort cannot understand, it is love. He didn't realize that love as powerful as your mother's for you leaves its own mark. Not a scar, no visible sign, to have been loved so deeply, even though the person who loved us is gone, will give us some protection forever. And that's why he couldn't touch me." "Precisely. But Harry, there's something else, something even more unusual that I've observed. Something beyond your mother's protection." Harry sat up straighter. "My immunity?" Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly. "You've noticed it, then?" "It's hard not to notice when nothing can hurt you," Harry said. "Potions, hexes, falls, nothing affects me. Even Devil's Snare couldn't really grip me. It's been that way as long as I can remember." Dumbledore stroked his beard thoughtfully. "The Sorting Hat mentioned something curious about you. It sensed an ancient magic, not just your mother's protection, but something else. Something rare." "What is it, sir? Why am I like this?" "I have a theory," Dumbledore said, "though I cannot be certain. Tell me, Harry, did anything unusual happen to you as a baby, before Voldemort's attack?" Harry thought hard, then shook his head. "I wouldn't remember, would I? I was only a year old." "No, I suppose not." Dumbledore sighed. "I shall have to research further. There are ancient forms of protection that occasionally manifest in wizards, particularly those with destinies as significant as yours. For now, I suggest you keep this ability quiet. Like your mother's protection, it saved you this time, but Voldemort is nothing if not adaptable. He will seek ways to overcome it." As Harry prepared to leave the hospital wing the next day, Madame Pomfrey gave him a final examination, marveling at how quickly he'd recovered. "Not a mark on you," she said, sounding almost disappointed. "Most peculiar." The end-of-year feast brought a final surprise when Dumbledore awarded last-minute points to Gryffindor for the trio's adventure, enough to win the House Cup from Slytherin. As Harry celebrated with his friends, he couldn't help reflecting on everything he'd learned about himself. He had his mother's protection against Voldemort, yes, but also this strange immunity that even Dumbledore didn't fully understand. Whatever it was, Harry was grateful for it, and determined to learn more. On the Hogwarts Express back to London, Ron and Hermione made him promise to write over the summer. "I'll need something to look forward to," Harry sighed, thinking of the Dursleys. "They don't even know I'm not allowed to use magic at home. I'm going to have a lot of fun with Dudley this summer." But as they approached King's Cross Station, Harry's thoughts turned to more serious matters. Voldemort was still out there, growing stronger. And now, more than ever, he would be seeking ways to counter Harry's unexpected protections. Whatever came next, Harry knew one thing for certain: his first year at Hogwarts had been just the beginning. Chapter 2, The Chambers Challenge. Harry lay flat on his back in the garden of Number 4, up Privet Drive, intentionally letting the scorching July sun beat down on his face. 2 hours in and not even a hint of sunburn. Another test confirmed. "Boy! What are you doing?" Uncle Vernon's voice boomed from the kitchen window. "You're supposed to be reading, not lounging about." "Just taking a short break," Harry called back, sitting up and grabbing a handful of weeds to show he was working. When Vernon turned away, Harry pulled his notebook from his pocket, jotting down his latest findings. Complete immunity to sunburn, tested July 15th. The list had grown impressively over the past month. Bee stings, found a nest in the garden shed, let 5 sting him, no reaction hot oil splash, accidentally on purpose when cooking bacon, no burns petunias cleaning chemicals, mixed bleach and ammonia in closed bathroom, no lung irritation electric shock, stuck fork in toaster, felt tingle but no pain sleep deprivation, stayed awake 72 hours, felt mentally fuzzy but physically fine. Harry tucked the notebook away, feeling a strange mix of scientific curiosity and isolation. His immunity was getting stronger, more comprehensive. And nobody to talk to about it. Ron and Hermione hadn't written all summer. Not one letter. After everything they'd been through with the Philosopher's Stone, the silence hurt more than any physical pain could. "What's the point of being immune to everything if I'm stuck here alone?" he muttered, aggressively yanking a dandelion from the flower bed. That night, Harry entered his bedroom to find a house elf bouncing on his bed. "Harry Potter," the creature squeaked, bowing so low his pencil-sharp nose touched the carpet. "So long has Dobby wanted to meet you, sir. Such an honor it is." "Thanks," Harry said awkwardly, edging toward his desk chair. "Who are you?" "Dobby, sir. Just Dobby. Dobby the house elf." "Is there a particular reason you're in my bedroom, Dobby?" The elf's tennis ball eyes grew wider. "Oh yes, sir. Dobby has come to tell you, it is difficult, sir. Dobby wonders where to begin." "Why don't you sit down?" Harry suggested, pointing to the bed. To his horror, the elf burst into noisy tears. "Sit down. Never, never ever." After several minutes calming Dobby down and learning about the terrible treatment house elves received from their wizard masters, Harry got to the heart of the matter. "Is there something specific you wanted to warn me about?" Dobby's whole body trembled. "Harry Potter must not go back to Hogwarts." "What?" "But I have to go back. You don't understand. I don't belong here. I belong in your world, at Hogwarts." "No, no, no," Dobby squeaked, shaking his head frantically. "Harry Potter must stay where he is safe. He is too important, too good, to lose. If Harry Potter goes back to Hogwarts, he will be in mortal danger." "Why?" Harry asked. "I'm pretty hard to hurt, you know." Dobby's ears perked up. Dobby has heard of Harry Potter's special magic. But even the unbreakable one is not truly unbreakable. There is a plot, Harry Potter. A plot to make most terrible things happen at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry this year. What terrible things? Who's plotting them? Dobby made a strange choking noise and began banging his head against the wall. "Bad Dobby! Bad Dobby!" After Harry pulled him away, Dobby gasped, "Dark wizards have ways, sir, ancient magics that can harm even those with special protections. The unbreakable one faces dangers beyond imagining." "The unbreakable one? Is that what they call me?" "Some do, sir." Stories spread after Harry Potter returned from Hogwarts. Tales of potions that cannot poison, curses that cannot curse, falls that cannot harm. A chill ran down Harry's spine. People knew about his immunity, enough that house elves in wizarding homes had heard stories. That couldn't be good. "Dobby, I appreciate the warning, but I have to go back to Hogwarts. It's my home." The elf's face crumpled. Then Harry Potter leaves Dobby no choice. With a snap of his fingers, Dobby disappeared. Seconds later, Harry heard the distinctive sound of Aunt Petunia's masterpiece pudding crashing to the kitchen floor. The days following the pudding incident were the worst of Harry's life. Vernon installed bars on his window, a cat flap in his door for minimal food, and locked Hedwig in her cage. Even Harry's immunity couldn't help with starvation or imprisonment. He was lying on his bed on the third night of captivity when he heard it, a mechanical whirring outside his window. Harry looked up to see Ron Weasley's freckled face grinning at him from behind the glass, framed by the strangest sight, a turquoise Ford Anglia floating in midair. "All right, Harry?" Ron asked. "Ron! How did you, what the?" Fred and George Weasley were in the front seat, beaming at him. "Stand back," Fred called, pulling a rope from his pocket. They looped the rope around the bars and revved the car's engine. With a crunching noise, the bars were pulled clean out of the window frame. "Get in," Ron urged. "But my trunk, my wand, Hedwig, where is it?" "Locked in the cupboard under the stairs. And I can't get out of this room." Fred and George climbed cat-like through Harry's window. "Leave that to us," George whispered. "Stand back." From his pocket, George pulled an ordinary hairpin. A moment later, Harry's door clicked open. "Muggle tricks," George explained with a wink. "Comes in handy when you can't use magic." They crept downstairs, Fred and George opened the cupboard with the same hairpin, and they lugged Harry's trunk back up to his room. Harry freed Hedwig, who soared joyfully out the window, then followed his trunk into the hovering car's back seat. They were just pulling away when Uncle Vernon burst into the room, roaring with fury as Harry waved cheerfully from the flying car. "See you next summer," he called as they soared toward the clouds. During the flight to the Weasleys' home, Harry learned the truth about his missing letters. Dobby had been intercepting them all summer, hoping Harry would think his friends had forgotten him and not want to return to Hogwarts. "Mental, that one," Ron declared when Harry finished explaining. "But why is he so worried about you specifically? I mean, I know you survived you know who and all that, but what's special about this year?" "I think it has to do with my immunity," Harry said quietly. "Dobby called me the unbreakable one. Said dark wizards are plotting something that could overcome my protection." Fred looked back from the front seat. "What immunity?" Harry hesitated, then decided the Weasleys deserved to know. He explained about his lifelong resistance to injury, intensified after surviving Voldemort's curse, and demonstrated by casually putting his hand in the car's cigarette lighter. The metal coil glowed red-hot against his palm, but Harry felt only mild warmth. "Blimey," breathed George. "That's why Quirrell couldn't touch you. And why Snape's potion didn't work." Ron added excitedly. "It wasn't just your mum's protection. You're actually immune to pretty much everything." "Not everything," Harry corrected. "My scar still hurts sometimes. And I can feel emotions like anyone else, fear, hunger, exhaustion. But physical stuff just doesn't affect me." Fred whistled. "No wonder you know who wants another go at you. You're basically unkillable." "I wouldn't go that far," Harry said uncomfortably. "Dumbledore says there are probably ways around it. That's what Dobby was warning me about, some plot to overcome my protection." "Well, you're safe with us," Ron declared confidently. "Wait till you see the burrow, our house. It's not much, but it'll be brilliant," Harry said, smiling for the first time in weeks. The burrow was everything Harry had ever dreamed a wizarding home would be: enchanted clocks, self-washing dishes, a ghoul in the attic, and garden gnomes that swore when thrown over the hedge. Mrs. Weasley scolded her sons fiercely for taking the car but welcomed Harry with open arms and heaping plates of food. Mr. Weasley, when he returned from work at the ministry, was more interested in how the flying car had performed than in punishing anyone. Most surprising was the youngest Weasley, Ron's sister Ginny, who took one look at Harry and fled the room, only to peek at him from doorways when she thought he wasn't looking. "She's been talking about you all summer," Ron explained with a roll of his eyes. "Dead annoying." The week at the Burrow passed in a blur of Quidditch games in the paddock, degenoming the garden, and eating Mrs. Weasley's incredible cooking. For the first time in his life, Harry experienced what a loving family felt like. Percy, the third oldest Weasley brother, mostly stayed in his room, emerging only for meals and to criticize his siblings' table manners. But on the third day, Harry caught Percy studying him intently over breakfast. "Is there something on my face?" Harry asked after the fifth covert glance. Percy flushed. "Sorry. I've just been reading about magical immunities. It's fascinating, really. There are historical cases documented as far back as Merlin's time. Most were temporary, triggered by specific events or potions." He leaned forward, suddenly intense. "But permanent, comprehensive immunity like yours? That's practically unheard of." "Leave him alone, Perce," Ron grumbled. "He's not one of your research projects." "It's okay," Harry said, curious despite himself. "What did you find out?" "Well, there was a witch in the 14th century who survived the Black Death because she'd accidentally ingested powdered dragon claw. And a wizard in ancient Rome who fell into a cauldron of immunity potion as a child, though his ended when he reached adulthood." Harry's heart skipped. "You mean, my immunity might wear off?" "Hard to say," Percy admitted. "Without knowing what caused it in the first place, that's enough," Mrs. Weasley interrupted firmly. "Percy, don't pester Harry with theories. Harry dear, have another sausage." But the seed of worry had been planted. What if his immunity did fade? He'd grown so accustomed to being protected that the thought of suddenly becoming vulnerable terrified him. The Weasleys' Hogwarts letters arrived the next day, including one for Harry that had somehow found him despite being addressed to Privet Drive. The second-year book list included the complete works of Gilderoy Lockhart, a wizard author Mrs. Weasley seemed particularly fond of. "We'll have to buy them in Diagon Alley," she sighed, looking at the list. "Lockhart books don't come cheap." "We'll manage," Mr. Weasley assured her, though Harry noticed the worried glance they exchanged. Later that night, Harry quietly approached Mr. Weasley and offered to help pay for his books, given that they were putting him up. "Nonsense," Mr. Weasley said, though his ears turned red in the distinctive Weasley way. "You're our guest." "Then could I at least pay for my own books?" Harry pressed. "I have gold and Gringotts from my parents. It feels weird not contributing anything." Mr. Weasley seemed torn between pride and practicality. Finally, he nodded. "If you insist on paying for your own supplies, we won't stop you. But that's all, mind." The trip to Diagon Alley was scheduled for the following Wednesday. They would travel by flow powder, a magical transportation method involving fireplaces that Harry had never used. "You go first, Harry dear, so you can see how it's done," Mrs. Weasley said, offering him a flower pot of glittering powder. Harry took a pinch, threw it into the flames, and watched the fire turn emerald green. Stepping nervously into the fire, he opened his mouth to say, "Diagon Alley," but inhaled a mouthful of ash and choked out something that sounded more like, "diagonally." The world spun violently around him as he was sucked into the flow network. Fireplaces whipped past in a nauseating blur before he was suddenly ejected, face first, onto a stone floor. Coughing and covered in soot, Harry stood up to find himself in a dimly lit shop filled with disturbing artifacts, a glass eye that followed his movements, a withered hand on a cushion, and a blood-stained pack of cards. He had definitely not reached Diagon Alley. This place radiated dark magic. Harry moved quietly toward the exit, but voices outside the window made him freeze. Draco Malfoy and a man who could only be his father were approaching the shop. With no time to escape, Harry ducked into a large black cabinet just as the bell over the door rang. Through a crack in the cabinet door, Harry watched as Lucius Malfoy sold several dark artifacts to the shopkeeper, mentioning ministry raids and items that might embarrass him. The conversation soon turned to Hogwarts, with Draco complaining about Harry. "Potter thinks he's so special with his immunity," Draco sneered. "Strutting around school like nothing can touch him." "Patience, Draco," Lucius said silkily. The unbreakable one may find himself more breakable this year. Harry's breath caught. There it was again, the unbreakable one. And Lucius Malfoy seemed to know about some plot against him, just as Dobby had warned. After the Malfoys left, Harry slipped out of the cabinet and the shop, finding himself in Nocturne Alley, a shadowy side street devoted to the dark arts. He was trying to find his way back to Diagon Alley when a familiar voice boomed, "Harry. What do ya think you're doing down here?" Hagrid loomed over him, brushing soot from Harry's robes with dustbin lid-sized hands. "You're a mess. Skulkin' around Nocturne Alley, dodgy place, Harry. Don want no one ter see ya down here." "I realized that," Harry said, explaining about the flu powder mishap. "But what were you doing down here?" "Me? Oh, flesh-eatin', slug repellent. They're ruinin' the school cabbages." Hagrid steered Harry back to Diagon Alley, where they quickly found the Weasleys and Hermione Granger outside Gringotts, all looking frantic. "Harry!" Hermione squealed, throwing her arms around him. "We've been so worried. Where did you end up?" Ron asked as Mrs. Weasley fussed over Harry's sooty appearance. "Nocturne Alley," Harry answered. "Wicked," the twins said together. "We've never been allowed in," Ron said enviously. "And for good reason," Mrs. Weasley snapped. As they entered Gringotts, Harry noticed Mr. Weasley's eyes widen at the sight of Hermione's parents, who were standing nervously at the counter, holding Muggle money. "But you're Muggles," Mr. Weasley said delightedly. "We must have a drink. What's that you've got there?" "Oh, you're changing Muggle money. Molly, look." It was hard to tell whether the Grangers were amused or alarmed by Mr. Weasley's enthusiasm. While the adults chatted, Harry quietly withdrew gold from his vault, taking extra to cover his books and slipping some into Ron's pocket when his friend wasn't looking. He felt awkward about his wealth compared to the Weasleys' obvious financial struggles. After gathering their gold, the group headed to Flourish and Blots for schoolbooks. A large crowd was gathered outside the bookshop, where a banner announced, "Gilderoy Lockhart will be signing copies of his autobiography Magical Me today 12:30 to 4:30 p.m, we can actually meet him." Mrs. Weasley squealed, patting her hair. "I mean, he's written almost the whole book list." Inside, a long line wound to the back of the shop, where Gilderoy Lockhart was signing books. He was a handsome wizard with wavy blonde hair and forget-me-not blue eyes, beaming at the crowd as a photographer took pictures for the Daily Prophet. Lockhart looked up and froze, his practiced smile faltering for a split second. "It can't be Harry Potter." The crowd parted, whispering excitedly, and Lockhart dived forward, seizing Harry's arm and pulling him to the front. The photographer clicked away madly, purple smoke billowing from his camera. "Nice big smile, Harry," Lockhart said through gleaming teeth. "Together, you and I are worth the front page." Harry tried to pull away, uncomfortable with the attention, but Lockhart's grip was surprisingly strong. When the photographer finally finished, Harry expected to be released, but instead, Lockhart threw an arm around his shoulders. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "this is the perfect moment for me to make a little announcement I've been sitting on for some time. When young Harry here stepped into Flourish and Blots today, he only wanted to buy my autobiography, which I shall be happy to present him with, free of charge." The crowd applauded. He had no idea that he would shortly be getting much, much more than my book, Magical Me. He and his schoolmates will, in fact, be getting the real Magical Me. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have great pleasure and pride in announcing that this September, I will be taking up the post of defense against the dark arts teacher at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The crowd cheered and clapped as Harry found himself being presented with the entire works of Gilderoy Lockhart. Staggering slightly under their weight, he made his way back to the Weasleys, dumping the books into Ginny's cauldron. "You have these," he muttered. "I'll buy my own." "Bet you loved that, didn't you, Potter?" a familiar voice drawled. Draco Malfoy had appeared, wearing his usual sneer. "Famous Harry Potter, can't even go into a bookshop without making the front page." "Leave him alone," he didn't want all that. Ginny spoke up, glaring at Malfoy. It was the first time Harry had heard her voice. "Look, Potter, you've got yourself a girlfriend." Malfoy laughed. Ron started toward Malfoy, but Harry and Hermione grabbed his arms. "Ron!" Mr. Weasley called, struggling through the crowd with Fred and George. "What are you doing? It's too crowded in here, let's go outside." Well, Arthur Weasley." Lucius Malfoy had appeared, placing a hand on Draco's shoulder, wearing the same contemptuous look. "Lucius," Mr. Weasley nodded coldly. "Busy time at the Ministry, I hear," Malfoy said. "All those raids. I hope they're paying you overtime." He reached into Ginny's cauldron and extracted a very old, very battered copy of A Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration. "Obviously not," he said. "Dear me, what's the use of being a disgrace to the name of wizard if they don't even pay you well for it?" Mr. Weasley flushed darker than Ron or Ginny. "We have a very different idea of what disgraces the name of wizard, Malfoy." Clearly, Malfoy's eyes strayed to Hermione's parents, who were watching apprehensively. "The company you keep, Weasley. And I thought your family could sink no lower." There was a thud of metal as Ginny's cauldron went flying. Mr. Weasley had thrown himself at Lucius Malfoy, knocking him backward into a bookshelf. Dozens of heavy spellbooks came thundering down on them as Fred and George cheered their father on. "Get him, Dad!" Fred shouted. "Gentlemen, please, please," cried the shop assistant. "Break it up, there, gents, break it up." Hagrid waded through the sea of books, pulling Mr. Weasley and Lucius apart. Mr. Weasley had a cut lip, and Lucius had been hit in the eye by an encyclopedia of toadstools. He thrust Ginny's old Transfiguration book at her, his eyes glittering with malice. "Here, girl, take your book, it's the best your father can give you." Pulling himself from Hagrid's grip, he beckoned to Draco and swept from the shop. "Yeah, should have ignored him, Arthur," Hagrid said, helping him straighten his robes. "Rotten to the core, the whole family." But Harry was watching Ginny's cauldron with a strange feeling. During the scuffle, he'd seen Malfoy slip something else into it, a small black book that hadn't been there before. He was about to mention it when Lockhart suddenly reappeared, making a beeline for Harry. "A word, if you please, Mr. Potter," he said, flashing his brilliant smile but with a calculating look in his eyes. "In private." Before Harry could protest, Lockhart had steered him into a quiet corner of the bookshop. "Harry, Lockhart sighed, dropping the public smile. "During our little photo session, I couldn't help but notice something extraordinary. My handshake, firm as it is, should have at least caused some discomfort, but you didn't even wince." Harry tensed. "I don't know what you mean." "Come now, we're both famous men here. No need for modesty." Lockhart's eyes gleamed. "The boy who lived. The unbreakable one." Word spreads quickly in certain circles. "What do you want?" Harry asked warily. "To help you, my dear boy. With your natural resilience and my expertise in defensive magic, we could make an unstoppable team. Private lessons, perhaps. I could teach you how to leverage your unique abilities, get you ready for the spotlight." "No thanks," Harry said firmly. "I don't want special treatment or attention." Lockhart's smile tightened. "Think about it, Harry. A boy with your gifts should learn how to use them properly. Especially with dangers lurking around every corner." He patted Harry's shoulder. "We'll talk more at Hogwarts." Harry rejoined the Weasleys, troubled by Lockhart's interest and Lucius Malfoy's cryptic words. Between Dobby's warning, the Malfoys' hints about making him more breakable, and now Lockhart's fixation on his immunity, Harry had a sinking feeling that his second year at Hogwarts would be even more dangerous than his first. September 1st arrived with typical Weasley chaos. Despite starting preparations at dawn, they were still rushing at the last minute. Fred forgot his broomstick, Ginny forgot her diary, the black book Harry had noticed, now written in, and traffic delayed their arrival at King's Cross until 10 minutes before the Hogwarts Express was due to depart. "Percy first," Mrs. Weasley said, checking the station clock nervously. Percy strode confidently toward the barrier between platforms 9 and 10 and disappeared. Mr. Weasley went next, followed by Fred and George. "I'll take Ginny, you two come right after us," Mrs. Weasley said, grabbing her daughter's hand. After they vanished, Harry and Ron positioned their trolleys and moved toward the barrier together. "We're going to miss the train," Ron muttered, checking his watch. They were feet from the barrier when it happened. Both trolleys hit the barrier and bounced backward, Hedwig's cage toppling from Harry's trolley with an outraged screech, and Ron's trunk falling off with a loud crash. "Why can't we get through?" Harry hissed. Ron looked wildly at the clock. "I dunno, the barrier sealed itself for some reason, people were staring at them for causing a disturbance." A guard nearby yelled, "What in blazes d'you think you're doing?" Lost control of the trolley, Harry gasped, picking up Hedwig's cage as Ron scrambled for his trunk. The clock struck 11. The train had left. "It's gone," Ron said, stunned. "What if Mum and Dad can't get back through to us?" They waited 15 minutes, but no Weasleys reappeared from the barrier. "They've probably gone back to the car to wait for us," Ron said finally. Then his eyes lit up. "The car. We can fly it to Hogwarts. But won't we be seen? It's got an invisibility booster. Come on, we're wasting time." Harry hesitated only briefly before following Ron back to the sky-blue Ford Anglia parked outside. The idea was mad, but what choice did they have? The flight to Hogwarts started smoothly enough. They rose above the clouds, invisible to Muggles below, with the train tracks guiding their way north. But as afternoon turned to evening, problems arose. The invisibility booster failed, the engine began to whine, and by the time they spotted Hogwarts Castle in the distance, the car was shuddering ominously. Almost there, Ron encouraged the vehicle, patting the dashboard. "Hold on." The car gave a nasty wobble. Through the windshield, Harry saw the smooth black surface of the lake widening ahead. The castle was directly ahead, but the car was losing altitude. "Come on," Ron muttered, jerking the steering wheel. They cleared the lake and were flying over the castle grounds when the car gave a mighty shudder and the engine died completely. "Uh-oh," Ron said, into the silence. The nose of the car dropped. They were falling, gathering speed, heading straight for the solid castle wall. "Oh!" Ron yelled, swinging the steering wheel around. They missed the wall by inches, skimmed the dark greenhouses, then the vegetable patch, and finally the sweeping lawn, losing height all the time, until, crash. With a sickening crunch of metal on wood, they hit a thick tree trunk and dropped to the ground. Steam billowed from the crumpled hood, Hedwig was shrieking in terror, Harry felt a sharp pain in his head where it had hit the windshield, the first real pain he'd felt in months. "Are you okay?" he asked Ron. "My wand," Ron moaned, holding up his snapped wand, barely held together by a few splinters. "Look at my wand," but he didn't finish his sentence, because at that moment, something hit the car with the force of a charging bull, sending Harry flying into Ron. "What the?" They looked up just in time to see a branch as thick as a python smash into the windshield. The tree they had hit was attacking them. "Reverse!" Harry shouted, and the car shot backward as another branch punched a dent into the door. The back window was smashed by a knobby twig, and more branches pounded every inch of the car until, with one last magnificent effort, the engine roared back to life. "Go!" Harry yelled. The car shot backward out of the tree's reach, the doors flew open, and Harry and Ron were ejected with their trunks and Hedwig's cage. The car, apparently fed up with them, rumbled off into the forbidden forest without looking back. "Come back!" Ron yelled, brandishing his broken wand. "Dad'll kill me." But the car disappeared from view with one last backfire. "Can you believe our luck?" Ron groaned, bending to pick up Scabbers, his rat. "Of all the trees we could have hit, we had to get the one that hits back. Let's get up to the school, Harry said, wiping blood from a cut on his forehead. The immunity that protected him from most injuries apparently had its limits against magical trees. They dragged their trunks up to the castle and peered through the window of the Great Hall, where the sorting ceremony was just ending. Snape, they noticed, was missing from the staff table. Maybe he's left, Ron said hopefully. Maybe he got sacked. Or maybe, said a cold voice right behind them, he's waiting to hear why you two didn't arrive on the school train. They spun around. There stood Severus Snape, his black robes billowing in the night breeze, a look of delighted fury on his thin face. "Follow me," he said. Too miserable to even look at each other, Harry and Ron followed Snape up the steps into the castle, through the entrance hall, and down to his office in the dungeons. "So," Snape said softly when they were seated. "The train isn't good enough for the famous Harry Potter and his faithful sidekick Weasley. Wanted to arrive with a bang, did we, boys?" "No, sir, the barrier at King's Cross, silence." Snape hissed. "What have you done with the car?" Harry's jaw dropped. How did he know about the car? Snape unrolled the evening edition of the Daily Prophet. "You were seen," he snarled, showing them the headline, "Flying Ford Anglia Mystifies Muggles." After reading the article detailing multiple Muggle sightings of the flying car, Snape informed them that Professor McGonagall and the headmaster would decide their fate. Soon afterward, McGonagall arrived with Dumbledore himself. After explaining their story about the sealed barrier, they awaited judgment. Dumbledore peered at them over his half-moon glasses with a severity Harry had rarely seen from him. "We'll go and get our stuff," Ron said in a hopeless sort of voice. "What are you talking about, Weasley?" barked Professor McGonagall. "Well, you're expelling us, aren't you?" Ron said. "Not today, Mr. Weasley," Dumbledore said. "But I must impress upon both of you the seriousness of what you have done. I will be writing to both your families tonight. I must also warn you that if you do anything like this again, I will have no choice but to expel you." Snape looked as though Christmas had been cancelled. McGonagall gave them detention but allowed them to rejoin the feast. Harry and Ron left the office, hardly daring to believe their luck. "That was a close one," Ron muttered. "Too close," Harry agreed, touching the cut on his head that was already healing. "Did you notice? The Whomping Willow actually hurt me." Ron's eyebrows shot up. "You mean your immunity didn't work?" "Not completely. It's healing faster than normal, but it still cut me." "That's not good, mate. Tell me about it." Within hours of returning to Hogwarts, Harry discovered that rumors about his immunity had indeed spread throughout the school. At breakfast the next morning, a timid first-year asked for his autograph, calling him the unbreakable boy. In herbology, Professor Sprout assigned Harry to handle the most dangerous plants, commenting that he was uniquely qualified to assist. But it was their first defense against the dark arts lesson where things truly got uncomfortable. Gilderoy Lockhart swept into the classroom, resplendent in robes of turquoise. After introducing himself with a 5-minute speech about his many achievements and awards, he held up a covered cage on his desk. "Now, be warned. It is my job to arm you against the foulest creatures known to wizard kind. You may find yourselves facing your worst fears in this room. Know only that no harm can befall you whilst I am here." He whipped off the cover dramatically. Yes. Freshly caught Cornish pixies. Seamus Finnegan couldn't control his snort of laughter. "Pixies?" "Yes, Mr. Finnegan, pixies," Lockhart said grandly. "Devilishly tricky little blighters. Let's see what you make of them." He opened the cage. Chaos erupted. The electric blue pixies shot in every direction like rockets. Two seized Neville by the ears and lifted him into the air. Several went straight for the windows, showering the back row with broken glass. The rest proceeded to wreck the classroom more effectively than a rampaging rhino. "Come on now, round them up, they're only pixies," Lockhart shouted. He rolled up his sleeves, brandished his wand, and bellowed, Pescipixie Pesternemy. The spell had absolutely no effect. One pixie seized Lockhart's wand and threw it out the window. Lockhart gulped, then spotted Harry trying to swat a pixie away from Hermione's hair. "Ah, Harry!" Lockhart called, backing toward the door. "Perhaps this is the perfect opportunity for a demonstration of your special abilities. I'll just leave you to show the class how it's done." He bolted from the room, slamming the door behind him. "Can you believe him?" roared Ron as he tried to grab a pixie dancing out of reach. "He just wants to see what I can do," Harry muttered, plucking a pixie from the air. The creature bit his hand hard enough to draw blood on any normal person, but merely tickled Harry's palm. He stuffed it back into the cage. It took the combined efforts of Harry, Ron, and Hermione to subdue the pixies, with Hermione finally freezing several with a clever immobility charm. When the last pixie was caged, they found a note on Lockhart's desk addressed to Harry, "Excellent handling of the pixies, Harry. I knew your unique resilience would make you the perfect candidate. See me after class to discuss private training sessions. Professor G. Lockhart, Order of Merlin, 3rd class, etc. Private training sessions." Ron read over Harry's shoulder. "He's obsessed with you, mate." "I'm not going," Harry said firmly, crumpling the note. "He's just trying to use me to make himself look better." But avoiding Lockhart proved impossible. The professor accidentally intercepted Harry after every meal, offering unsolicited advice on handling fame and repeatedly suggesting that Harry could benefit from his expertise in defensive techniques. "The man can barely handle pixies," Hermione said dismissively after Lockhart cornered Harry outside the library. "What could he possibly teach you about your immunity?" "Nothing," Harry agreed. "But he keeps talking about dangers lurking at Hogwarts and how I should be prepared." "You don't think he knows about whatever Dobby was warning you about?" Ron asked. "Maybe. Or he's just making it up to sound important." They might have continued dismissing Lockhart's warnings if not for what happened on Halloween night. The school feast was in full swing, with live bats fluttering from the enchanted ceiling and Hagrid's enormous pumpkins carved into lanterns big enough for 3 men to sit in. Harry, Ron, and Hermione were enjoying their second helpings of pumpkin pie when Harry felt a strange chill run through him, similar to what he'd felt in the Forbidden Forest last year when encountering Voldemort, but not accompanied by pain in his scar. "Do you feel that?" he whispered to his friends. "Feel what?" Ron asked through a mouthful of pie. Before Harry could answer, Dumbledore rose to begin the Halloween entertainment, and the Hogwarts ghosts glided through the walls in formation. But nearly headless Nick, the Gryffindor ghost, broke ranks and swooped directly to Harry. "Potter," he hissed urgently. "Come quickly. Something's happening on the 2nd floor." "Now?" Harry asked. "Now. And come alone. It involves your particular talents." Harry hesitated, then whispered to Ron and Hermione, "I need to check something. Cover for me." He slipped away from the table and followed Nick out of the Great Hall. The ghost led him toward the 2nd floor, growing increasingly agitated. "I felt a disturbance, dark magic, the kind that affects even those of us who have passed beyond the veil. Then I heard the voice." "What voice?" Nick shook his translucent head. "A voice no living person should hear. It spoke of killing, of blood and death. And then it said your name, Potter. Even the unbreakable one cannot resist." Harry's blood ran cold. "Where did it go?" "This way," Nick pointed, then suddenly froze. "There." Harry rounded the corner and stopped dead. Foot-high words had been daubed on the wall between 2 windows, shimmering in the torchlight, "The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware. The unbreakable one will be next." And hanging from a torch bracket by her tail was Mrs. Norris, Filch's cat, stiff as a board, eyes wide and staring. Harry approached cautiously, reaching up to touch the cat. She was cold as ice, hard as stone, but he could detect the faintest pulse. Not dead, then, but petrified somehow. Potter. Harry spun around to find Professors McGonagall, Snape, and Dumbledore hurrying toward him, followed by the rest of the staff. The Halloween feast must have ended. What is the meaning of this? McGonagall demanded. I found her like this, Harry explained. Nearly headless Nick brought me, a likely story, Snape's lip curled. Perhaps Potter thought adding another feat to his legend would be amusing. The Unbreakable One, conquering another dark mystery. That's enough, Severus, Dumbledore said quietly. He carefully detached Mrs. Norris from the bracket. She is not dead, but petrified. How this has been done, I cannot say. Ask him, shrieked Filch, pushing through the crowd of students that had gathered. He's done it. He's killed my cat. No second year could have done this, Dumbledore said firmly. It would take dark magic of the most advanced, he did it. He knows I'm a squib. I never touched Mrs. Norris. Harry protested. And I didn't write that message. Why would I threaten myself? All eyes moved to the final line of the message, the Unbreakable One will be next. An uncomfortable silence fell. Clearly, whoever had opened the Chamber of Secrets had Harry specifically in their sights. I believe Mr. Potter, Dumbledore said finally. However, these are disturbing circumstances. The Chamber of Secrets is believed to be a myth, but if it has indeed been opened. He trailed off, his eyes troubled. What exactly is the Chamber of Secrets? Harry asked. That, said Dumbledore gravely, is a very long story. For now, I suggest everyone return to their dormitories immediately. Minerva, please escort Mr. Potter to my office. I believe he and I need to have a conversation about what exactly the Unbreakable One means. In Dumbledore's circular office, surrounded by portraits of sleeping former headmasters and headmistresses, Harry explained everything, his lifelong immunity, the rumors spreading through the wizarding world, and Dobby's warning about dark magic that could overcome his protection. Dumbledore listened without interruption, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. When Harry finished, the headmaster rose and approached Fawkes, his phoenix, stroking the bird's scarlet plumage. Harry, I believe it's time I shared a theory with you, one I've been developing since our conversation after the Philosopher's Stone incident. Harry leaned forward expectantly. The night your parents died, two extraordinary magics collided, Voldemort's killing curse and your mother's sacrificial protection. But I believe a third magic was also present, one that had been lying dormant in your system since before that night. A third magic? Yes. Tell me, Harry, do you know what a bezor is? Harry nodded. A stone from a goat's stomach. It protects against most poisons. Professor Snape mentioned it in our first potions class. Indeed. And did you ever, as a very young child, perhaps swallow something that might have been a bezor? Harry started to shake his head, then stopped. I don't remember, sir. I was only a baby when my parents died. I've been in contact with Remus Lupin, one of your father's closest friends. He recalls James mentioning an incident just days before Voldemort's attack, baby Harry getting into his emergency Auror kit and swallowing a bezor. James and Lily weren't concerned because bezors are harmless when ingested. But sir, a bezor only works against poisons, not curses or physical injuries. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. In most cases, yes. But when a bezor is absorbed by a magical child's developing system, then combined with the protective magic of a mother's sacrifice and the rebounding energy of the killing curse. He spread his hands. Magic, especially ancient magic, works in mysterious ways when powers combine. Harry sat back, processing this. So you think the bezor, my mum's protection, and surviving the killing curse all work together to make me immune? It's a theory. One that would explain why your immunity extends beyond what any single protective magic should provide. But then why did the warning on the wall call me the Unbreakable One? If my immunity has limits, because, Dumbledore said gravely, there are those who believe your immunity makes you truly invincible. And there are others who seek to prove that theory wrong. The Chamber of Secrets is said to house a monster that only the heir of Slytherin can control, a creature with powers beyond ordinary magic. And you think this heir wants to test whether their monster can hurt me when nothing else can? It seems a reasonable assumption, given the message. Harry swallowed hard. What exactly is this chamber, sir? And who is the heir? Dumbledore sighed, returning to his desk. Hogwarts was founded over 1,000 years ago by the four greatest witches and wizards of the age, Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin. For a while, they worked in harmony, seeking out youngsters who showed signs of magic and bringing them to the castle to be educated. But then disagreements arose. Slytherin wished to be more selective about the students admitted to Hogwarts. He believed that magical learning should be kept within all magic families, what we now call purebloods. Unable to sway the others, Slytherin left the school. Dumbledore paused, watching Harry carefully. According to legend, Slytherin built a hidden chamber in the castle before leaving, a chamber of secrets, and sealed it until his own true heir arrived at the school, the only one who could open the chamber and unleash the horror within, purging the school of those Slytherin deemed unworthy to study magic. Muggle-borns, Harry said quietly. Precisely. The school has been searched many times, but no such chamber has been found. As for the heir, logic suggests it would be a descendant of Slytherin himself. Like Voldemort? Harry asked, remembering that the Sorting Hat had said he would do well in Slytherin. Could I be related to Slytherin too? Ah, Dumbledore smiled slightly. You're thinking of what the Sorting Hat told you. No, Harry, I do not believe you are the heir of Slytherin. Your father's family were almost exclusively in Gryffindor. Your ability to speak Parseltongue, yes, I know about that, comes from your connection to Voldemort established the night he gave you that scar. Harry exhaled in relief, then tensed again. Sir, if the chamber has been opened, and the monster is targeting me specifically, then we must be exceptionally vigilant, Dumbledore finished. I suggest you stay close to your friends, avoid wandering alone, and report anything unusual immediately. And Harry, his voice grew softer, do not test the limits of your immunity unnecessarily. We still don't fully understand its nature or boundaries. Harry nodded, then asked the question that had been bothering him since Diagon Alley. Sir, do you think Lucius Malfoy knows about the chamber? He seemed to hint that something would happen to me this year. Dumbledore's eyes hardened briefly. That is a very serious accusation, Harry. Without evidence, we cannot make such claims against a school governor. I understand, Professor. Now, it's late. Return to Gryffindor Tower, and try not to worry too much. Hogwarts has faced many dangers in its long history, and it remains standing. Harry left the office with more questions than answers, his mind swirling with ancient chambers, petrified cats, and the ominous title that had spread through the wizarding world, the Unbreakable One. News of the attack spread through the school like wildfire. By morning, everyone knew about Mrs. Norris and the writing on the wall. Theories about the Chamber of Secrets and the heir of Slytherin dominated every conversation, but equally prevalent were whispers about the Unbreakable One and why Harry Potter was being specifically targeted. In the days that followed, Harry found himself at the center of suspicious glances and open curiosity. Some students gave him a wide berth, as if he might be the heir of Slytherin himself, while others approached with bizarre requests to demonstrate his immunity, from a second-year Hufflepuff asking Harry to drink ink to a group of Slytherins who, accidentally, pushed him down a flight of stairs, only to watch in amazement as he landed nimbly at the bottom without a scratch. This is getting ridiculous, Hermione said after a fifth year asked Harry if he could breathe underwater. Why would anyone think you're either the heir or the monster's target? It makes no sense. Actually, both theories make sense, Harry sighed. I can speak Parseltongue, remember? And snakes are Slytherin's symbol. Plus, whoever wrote that message clearly knows about my immunity. But why would the heir target you specifically? Ron asked. I mean, you're a half-blood, not a muggle-born like Hermione. And if you're so hard to hurt, wouldn't the heir go after easier targets first? Hermione bit her lip. Unless it's precisely because of the immunity. Maybe the heir wants to prove they can overcome it. Harry nodded grimly. That's what Dumbledore thinks too. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Colin Creevey, a first-year who had been following Harry around with a camera since the term began, repeatedly asking for autographed photos of the unbreakable boy who lived. All right, Harry. Colin squeaked. I heard some sixth years saying the monster can't hurt you because you're immune to everything. Is that true? Can I get a picture of you for my brother? He doesn't believe you can't be hurt. Not now, Colin, Harry muttered, embarrassed. Colin's face fell, but he brightened immediately. Well, if you change your mind, I'll be in the common room tonight developing these. He held up his camera. I worked out how to make the pictures move. Amazing, isn't it? After Colin left, Ron shook his head. You've got yourself a proper fan club now, Harry. Bet the monster's terrified. Don't joke about it, Harry said sharply. Colin's muggle-born. If the legend is true, he's in danger. His words proved prophetic. That weekend, after a particularly brutal Quidditch match against Slytherin, where Harry caught the snitch despite a rogue bludger breaking his arm, his immunity apparently still had limits against magical sporting equipment, Colin was found petrified on a staircase, his camera held up to his face as if taking a picture. When Dumbledore and McGonagall examined the camera, hoping to catch a glimpse of Colin's attacker, they found the film melted to liquid. More disturbing was the note clutched in Colin's petrified hand, for the unbreakable one, your friend wasn't so lucky. Neither will you be. The school fell into a state of genuine panic. Students moved in tight-knit groups, no one went to the bathroom alone, and several parents threatened to withdraw their children. Professor McGonagall announced that an extra-credit dueling club would be established to help students protect themselves. The first meeting of the dueling club was held in the Great Hall 2 weeks after Colin's attack. The long dining tables had vanished, replaced by a golden stage along one wall. Nearly the entire student body had turned up, brandishing their wands nervously. I wonder who'll be teaching us. Hermione said. I heard Flitwick was a dueling champion when he was young. As long as it's not, Harry began, but groaned when Gilderoy Lockhart walked onto the stage, resplendent in robes of deep plum, accompanied by a sour-faced Snape in his usual black. Gather round, gather round. Lockhart called. Can everyone see me? Can you all hear me? Excellent. Professor Dumbledore has granted me permission to start this little dueling club, to train you all in case you ever need to defend yourselves as I myself have done on countless occasions. For full details, see my published works. He flashed his winning smile. Let me introduce my assistant, Professor Snape. He tells me he knows a tiny little bit about dueling himself and has sportingly agreed to help me with a short demonstration before we begin. Wouldn't it be good if they finished each other off? Ron muttered to Harry. Lockhart and Snape turned to face each other and bowed, though Snape barely inclined his head. They raised their wands like swords in front of them, then Lockhart counted down, 1, 2, 3. Both swung their wands above their heads and pointed them at their opponent. Snape cried, Expelliarmus. A dazzling flash of scarlet light erupted from his wand, blasting Lockhart off his feet. He flew backward off the stage, smashed into the wall, and slid down to sprawl on the floor. Malfoy and some other Slytherins cheered. Hermione danced on tiptoes. Do you think he's all right? She squealed. Who cares, said Harry and Ron together. Lockhart unsteadily regained his feet, his hat fallen off and his wavy hair standing on end. Well, there you have it, he said, tottering back onto the platform. That was a disarming charm. As you see, I've lost my wand. Ah, thank you, Miss Brown. Yes, an excellent idea to show them that, Professor Snape, but if you don't mind my saying so, it was very obvious what you were about to do. If I had wanted to stop you it would have been only too easy, however, I felt it would be instructive to let them see. Snape looked murderous. Lockhart noticed and quickly changed course. Now, let's have a volunteer pair, Potter, Weasley, how about you? Weasley's wand causes devastation with the simplest spells, Snape said silkily. We'll be sending Potter to the hospital wing in a matchbox. Might I suggest someone from my own house? Malfoy, perhaps? Excellent idea. Lockhart exclaimed, gesturing for Harry and Malfoy to come forward. As the two boys faced each other on the platform, Lockhart whispered to Harry, "Now, Harry, this is the perfect opportunity to demonstrate your special resilience. Don't hold back." Harry ignored him, focusing on Malfoy, who was smirking confidently. "Scared, Potter?" Malfoy murmured. "You wish," Harry replied. "Wands at the ready," called Lockhart. "When I count to 3, cast your charms to disarm your opponent, only to disarm, we don't want any accidents. 1, 2. But Malfoy started on 2, sending a spell that hit Harry hard in the stomach. Harry felt like he'd been hit with a frying pan, but remained standing, immune to the worst of the spell's effects. Without missing a beat, Harry pointed his wand and shouted, "Rictus Sempra." A jet of silver light struck Malfoy, who doubled over, wheezing with laughter. The tickling charm had hit its mark. Enraged, Malfoy gasped out, "Tarantaligra," even as he continued laughing. Harry's legs began to jerk uncontrollably in a kind of quickstep. This surprised him. His immunity usually protected against most jinxes, but apparently not all. "Stop! Stop!" screamed Lockhart, but Snape took charge. "Finite incantatem," he shouted, and both Harry's legs and Malfoy's laughter stopped. A haze of greenish smoke hung over the scene. Neville and Justin Finch-Fletchley were both lying on the floor, panting. Ron was holding up a grey-faced Seamus, apologizing for his broken wand's effects, but Hermione and Millicent Bulstrode were still moving. Millicent had Hermione in a headlock, and both their wands lay forgotten on the floor. Harry leapt forward and pulled Millicent off Hermione, finding it unusually easy to break the larger girl's grip, another benefit of his strange magic. "Dear, dear," Lockhart skittered through the crowd, surveying the aftermath. "I think I'd better teach you how to block unfriendly spells. Let's have a new volunteer pair, Longbottom and Finch-Fletchley, how about you?" "A bad idea, Professor Lockhart," Snape glided over. "Longbottom causes devastation even with the simplest spells. We'll be sending what's left of Finch-Fletchley to the hospital wing in a matchbox." Neville's round, pink face went pinker. "How about Malfoy and Potter again? They seem evenly matched." "Excellent idea." Lockhart shouted, gesturing for Harry and Malfoy to return to the middle of the hall. "Now, Harry, when Malfoy points his wand at you, do this." He raised his wand, attempted a complicated wiggling action, and dropped it. Snape smirked as Lockhart quickly picked up his wand, saying, "Whoops, my wand is a little overexcited." Snape moved closer to Malfoy, bent down, and whispered something in his ear. Malfoy smirked. Harry looked nervously at Lockhart. "Professor, could you show me that blocking thing again?" "Just do what I did, Harry." "What? Drop my wand?" But Lockhart wasn't listening. 3, 2, 1, go, he shouted. Malfoy raised his wand and bellowed, "Serpensortia." The end of his wand exploded. Harry watched, stunned, as a long black snake shot out of it, fell heavily onto the floor between them, and raised itself, ready to strike. There were screams as the crowd backed away. "Don't move, Potter," Snape said lazily, clearly enjoying Harry's discomfort. "I'll get rid of it." "Allow me." Lockhart shouted. He brandished his wand at the snake and there was a loud bang. The snake, instead of vanishing, flew 10 feet into the air and fell back to the floor with a loud smack. Enraged, hissing furiously, it slithered straight toward Justin Finch-Fletchley and raised itself again, fangs exposed, poised to strike. Harry acted without thinking. He sprinted forward and threw himself between Justin and the snake, fully expecting his immunity to protect him from the bite. But before the snake could strike, Harry shouted, "Leave him alone." The snake slumped to the floor, docile as a garden hose, its eyes now on Harry. He felt the fear drain out of him, knowing somehow the snake wouldn't attack anyone now. He looked up at Justin, grinning, expecting to see relief or gratitude. But Justin's face showed terror and anger. "What do you think you're playing at?" he shouted, and before Harry could reply, Justin turned and stormed out of the hall. Snape stepped forward, waved his wand, and the snake vanished in a small puff of black smoke. He gave Harry a long, calculating look that Harry couldn't quite read. Around them, the hall buzzed with whispers. Ron tugged at Harry's robes. "Come on," he muttered. "Move, come on." He steered Harry out of the hall, Hermione hurrying alongside them. As they entered an empty classroom, Ron pushed Harry into a chair and said, "You're a Parcelmouth. Why didn't you tell us?" "I'm a what?" Harry asked. "A Parcelmouth," Ron exclaimed. "You can talk to snakes." "I know," Harry said. "I mean, that's only the second time I've ever done it. I accidentally set a boa constrictor on my cousin Dudley at the zoo once, long story, but it was telling me it had never seen Brazil and I sort of set it free without meaning to. That was before I knew I was a wizard." "A boa constrictor told you it had never seen Brazil?" Ron repeated faintly. "So?" Harry said. "I bet loads of people here can do it." "No, they can't," Ron said. "It's not a common gift, Harry. This is bad." "What's bad?" Harry asked, starting to feel angry. "If I hadn't told that snake not to attack Justin." "Oh, that's what you said to it?" Ron asked. "You were there. You heard me." "I heard you speaking Parseltongue," Ron said. "Snake language. You could have been saying anything." "No wonder Justin looked scared, you sounded like you were egging the snake on or something." Harry's mouth fell open. "I spoke a different language. But I didn't realize, how can I speak a language without knowing I can?" Ron shook his head. "I don't know, but it sounds really creepy. And it's exactly the kind of thing Salazar Slytherin was famous for. That's why the symbol of Slytherin House is a serpent." Harry stared at him. "But I'm in Gryffindor." "I know," Ron said, looking troubled. "But now everyone's going to think you're his great-great-great-great-grandson or something, but I'm not." Harry protested, feeling a sudden panic. "It'll be hard to prove," Hermione cut in, speaking for the first time. "Slytherin lived about 1,000 years ago, for all we know, you could be." Harry lay awake for hours that night, thinking about what Ron and Hermione had said. Could he be a descendant of Salazar Slytherin? He didn't know anything about his father's family, after all. The Dursleys had always forbidden questions about his wizarding relatives. But something else bothered him more than his possible ancestry. Why had he instinctively stepped between Justin and the snake? His immunity was remarkable, but not infallible. The bludger had broken his arm, the Whomping Willow had cut him, and Malfoy's jinx had affected his legs. What if snake venom was another exception to his protection? He'd acted on pure instinct, putting himself in danger to protect someone else. It was the same instinct that had driven him to grab Quirrell's face last year, despite the pain in his scar. Immunity or not, Harry realized, he would always choose to protect others if he could. The next day, however, his noble instincts were rewarded with even more suspicion and fear. The story of his Parseltongue abilities spread through the school like fiendfire, twisting with each retelling until people were claiming Harry had set the snake on Justin and threatened him with the same fate as Mrs. Norris. "It's because they think I'm the heir of Slytherin now," Harry told his friends as they made their way to the library through crowds of whispering students. "Because I can talk to snakes and I'm supposedly invulnerable to harm." "That doesn't make any sense," Hermione insisted. "If you were the heir, why would the message specifically threaten you?" "The unbreakable one will be next," that's clearly referring to you. Maybe it's a double bluff, Ron suggested. Make everyone think you're the target when you're actually the heir. Harry glared at him. Not helping, Ron. As they rounded a corner, Harry suddenly collided with Hagrid, who was wearing a balaclava over his face. Oh, hello, Hagrid, Harry greeted him. Hagrid's eyes crinkled in a smile beneath the wool. All right, Harry. Why aren't ya in class? Cancelled, Ron explained. Justin Finch-Fletchley had a panic attack in herbology when Harry tried to pass him the pruning shears. Hagrid growled. Been hearin' all sorts o' rubbish about ya, Harry. Even heard some fool say you're the heir of Slytherin and that's why nothin' can hurt ya. Yeah, everyone's talking about me, Harry said miserably. Hagrid shook his massive head. Don't you worry. It'll all blow over. Just like when they were all wonderin' how ya survived you know who. He shifted the dead rooster he was carrying from one hand to the other. Second one killed this term. Reckon it's either foxes or a blood-suckin' bugbear. Need Dumbledore's permission to put a charm around the hen coop. The rooster triggered a memory in Hermione. She gasped suddenly, slapping her forehead. The library. I need to check something. She sprinted off without another word. Harry and Ron stared after her. What's got into her? Hagrid asked. No idea, said Ron, shrugging. Want us to walk with you to Dumbledore's office? Nah, Hagrid waved his free hand. You two get on to wherever you're goin'. And, Harry, he added in a lower voice, don't listen to what they're sayin'. You're a good lad, and that immunity o' yours is a gift, not something dark. Remember that. Harry smiled gratefully as Hagrid lumbered off. He and Ron decided to check the library for Hermione, but as they approached, they overheard a group of Hufflepuffs huddled between the bookshelves. So anyway, a stout boy was saying, I told Justin to hide in our dormitory. I mean, if Potter's marked him down as his next victim, it's best if he keeps a low profile for a while. But why would Potter attack Justin? A girl with blonde pigtails asked. Justin let slip that he was Muggle-born, the stout boy replied. And everyone knows Potter can't be hurt by normal magic. He's obviously the heir of Slytherin, that's where the immunity comes from. Slytherin's own protection for his true descendant. But Hannah, another boy countered, Harry's always seemed so nice. And he's friends with Hermione Granger, and she's Muggle-born. He'd never attack her. That's because he needs her to help with homework, the stout boy said darkly. But she'll be next, mark my words. They say the reason you know who wanted to kill Potter was because he recognized a rival. 2 heirs of Slytherin, and only one could survive. Harry couldn't take it anymore. He stepped into view, making the Hufflepuffs jump so badly that ink bottles went flying. Hello, he said. I'm looking for Justin Finch-Fletchley. The Hufflepuffs looked terrified. The stout boy spoke first, his voice trembling. What do you want with him? I want to tell him what really happened with that snake at the dueling club. But the damage was done. The Hufflepuffs clearly thought Harry was hunting Justin down for his next attack. One by one, they gathered their things and hurried away, casting fearful glances over their shoulders. This is ridiculous, Harry muttered. I can't even apologize without people thinking I'm trying to petrify someone. Harry and Ron gave up on finding Hermione and headed back toward Gryffindor Tower. As they climbed a staircase, Harry's foot suddenly went straight through a trick step. He was struggling to pull it free, with Ron tugging on his arm, when a cold voice spoke behind them. Having trouble, Potter? It was Draco Malfoy, flanked as usual by Crabbe and Goyle. Shove off, Malfoy, Ron snapped, still pulling Harry's arm. Malfoy smirked. The unbreakable one defeated by a simple trick step. How embarrassing. Harry finally wrenched his leg free and faced Malfoy. What do you want? Just curious about all these attacks, Malfoy said idly. First a message threatening you specifically, then your little fanboy Privet gets petrified with another note. It's almost like the air wants to challenge you directly. Harry's eyes narrowed. And why would that interest you, Malfoy? Unless you know something about the air. A flicker of something, alarm. Excitement. Crossed Malfoy's face. I wish I knew who it was. I'd help them. Get out of our way, Ron snarled, drawing his spellotaped wand. Careful, Weasley, Malfoy sneered. You don't want to start casting spells with that thing, you might curse yourself. Though I suppose Potter could shield you, right? He turned to Harry. Unless your famous immunity doesn't extend to protecting blood traitors and mudbloods. Ron lunged forward, but Harry held him back. He's not worth it. Listen to Potter, Malfoy laughed. Even he knows when he's outmatched. As Malfoy and his cronies swaggered away, Ron fumed. One of these days, I'm going to get him. I swear it. They continued toward Gryffindor Tower, but a strange sound stopped Harry in his tracks, a voice, cold and murderous, echoing from somewhere nearby, rip, tear, kill. It was the same voice he'd heard before the first attack, when Mrs. Norris was petrified. Ron, it's the voice again, listen. But Ron was staring at him, bewildered. What voice? Harry strained to hear. The voice was growing fainter, moving away, so hungry, for so long, kill, time to kill. It's going to kill someone. Harry shouted, starting to run in the direction the voice seemed to be heading. Harry, I can't hear anything. Ron called, chasing after him. Harry sprinted up the stairs and down corridors, following the murderous voice. It led him toward a deserted passage on the second floor, near where Mrs. Norris had been attacked. As he rounded the corner, he froze in horror. Justin Finch-Fletchley was lying on the floor, rigid and cold, a look of shock frozen on his face. And beside him, floating horizontally 6 inches off the ground, was nearly headless Nick, no longer pearly white and transparent, but black and smoky, like a negative photograph. No, Harry breathed, backing away. No, no, no. Footsteps pounded behind him as Ron caught up, gasping for breath. Harry, what? He broke off, seeing the petrified forms. Oh my God. We need to get help, Harry said urgently. We need to, but it was too late. Peeves the poltergeist came bobbing around the corner, spotted them, and let out a cackle of delight. Attack! Attack! Another attack! No mortal or ghost is safe. Run for your lives. Attack! Doors flew open along the corridor. Students poured out of classrooms, creating a scene of chaos. Professor McGonagall arrived, ordering everyone back to their classes. She conjured a stretcher for Justin and a large fan for Nick, then turned to Harry and Ron. This way, Potter, Weasley. Professor, Harry pleaded, I swear I didn't, this is out of my hands, Potter, she said curtly, leading them up a flight of stairs and stopping before an extremely ugly stone gargoyle. Sherbet lemon, she said. The gargoyle sprang to life and hopped aside as the wall behind it split in two, revealing a spiral staircase that moved continuously upward like an escalator. They stepped onto it, and the wall closed behind them with a thud. Rising upward in circles, Harry felt sick with dread. They were clearly being taken to Dumbledore's office, and this time, having been discovered at the scene of a double attack, even the headmaster might not believe his innocence. The staircase stopped at a gleaming oak door with a brass knocker in the shape of a griffin. McGonagall rapped once and pushed the door open. Wait here, she instructed, leaving Harry and Ron in the circular office. Harry had visited once before, but he'd been too distracted by their conversation to really look around. Now, despite his anxiety, he couldn't help noticing the fascinating silver instruments whirring and emitting little puffs of smoke on spindle-legged tables, the walls covered with portraits of previous headmasters and headmistresses, all snoozing gently in their frames, and the enormous claw-footed desk. Behind the desk, on a shelf, sat the shabby, patched sorting hat. And on a golden perch beside the door sat Fawkes, Dumbledore's phoenix, except the bird looked nothing like Harry remembered. It appeared decrepit and balding, with only a few tail feathers remaining. As Harry watched, the bird burst into flames. "Harry!" Ron gasped. "Do something, it's burning." But Harry knew what was happening. "It's okay, Ron. Phoenixes burst into flame when it's time for them to die, and then they're reborn from the ashes." Ron stared as the flames died down, leaving a pile of ash on the floor. A tiny, wrinkled newborn bird poked its head out of the ashes. "It's a shame you had to see him on a burning day," Dumbledore's voice came from behind them. "He's really very handsome most of the time." The headmaster seated himself behind his desk, his blue eyes lacking their usual twinkle. "Professor McGonagall tells me you were discovered at the scene of another attack." "It wasn't Harry, Professor." Ron burst out. "He didn't have time, we were together the whole morning, and I do not believe Harry attacked anyone, Mr. Weasley," Dumbledore said calmly. "You don't?" Ron said, surprised. "No, I don't. But I still want to talk to Harry." He dismissed Ron with a nod, promising him Harry would be along shortly. When they were alone, Dumbledore studied Harry over his half-moon spectacles. "I must ask you, Harry, whether there is anything you wish to tell me." "Anything at all." Harry hesitated. Should he mention the disembodied voice only he could hear? The suspicions about his Parseltongue abilities? The way his immunity seemed to be failing against certain types of magic? "There is one thing, sir," Harry decided. "I keep hearing a voice no one else seems to be able to hear. It talks about killing, and both times I've heard it, someone was attacked right afterward." Dumbledore's gaze intensified. "And you follow this voice?" "Yes, sir. It's moving through the walls or something. I can't explain it." "I see," Dumbledore said slowly. "And when Justin and nearly headless Nick were attacked, did you notice anything unusual about the scene? Besides the obvious, of course." Harry thought back. There was water on the floor, like when Mrs. Norris was found. And he frowned, remembering something. Spiders. A line of spiders escaping through a crack in the window. Dumbledore nodded, as if Harry had confirmed something. "Harry, I believe you are hearing the voice of the monster within the chamber. But why can only I hear it? Think, Harry. What ability do you possess that is extremely rare, even among wizards?" Harry's eyes widened. "Parseltongue. The monster's a snake?" "I believe so. A very particular kind of snake, with powers beyond ordinary serpents." "But sir, if you know what it is, I have suspicions, not certainty," Dumbledore corrected. "And without knowing where the chamber is located or who is controlling the creature, this information doesn't help us much." "What about me?" Harry asked. "The message said I'd be next, and Malfoy hinted the heir wants to challenge me directly." Dumbledore sighed. "Yes, it seems your reputation as the Unbreakable One has made you a target. The heir, or whoever is controlling the monster, appears to view you as worthy opposition. A test of their power against your immunity." "But my immunity isn't perfect," Harry said, frustrated. "The Whomping Willow hurt me. The bludger broke my arm. I'm not actually invulnerable. Few know the true limits of your protection, Harry. Rumors have a way of growing far beyond reality." Dumbledore gestured to the baby phoenix, now peeping feebly in its ash nest. "Like Fawkes, legends are reborn in the telling, often more grand than their origins." Harry looked at the tiny bird, remembering how magnificent it had appeared when fully grown. "So what should I do?" "Be vigilant. Stay close to your friends. And Harry," Dumbledore's voice grew grave, "if you hear the voice again, do not follow it alone. Find a teacher immediately." Harry nodded, though he couldn't imagine letting the voice go if it meant preventing another attack. "One more thing, sir. In the library, I overheard some Hufflepuffs saying my immunity comes from being Slytherin's heir, that it's his protection for his true descendant. An interesting theory, Dumbledore said, his eyes regaining a hint of their twinkle. But I think we both know the more likely source of your unique abilities. The Bezor, Harry said. And my mother's sacrifice. Precisely. Now, I believe your friend Mr. Weasley is waiting rather anxiously outside. You may go. As Harry reached the door, Dumbledore called after him. And Harry, be careful. The heir may not be able to harm you directly, but they can still hurt those you care about. It was a warning Harry took to heart as he rejoined Ron, both of them hurrying back to Gryffindor Tower to find Hermione and tell her everything that had happened. The double attack on Justin and nearly headless Nick turned Hogwarts upside down. Fear spread through the school like a contagion, with students traveling in tight packs for safety. The few who had signed up to stay at Hogwarts for Christmas quickly changed their minds. Everyone wanted to go home. Everyone except Harry, Ron, and Hermione. And, strangely, Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle, who had also chosen to remain at school over the holidays. It's suspicious, Hermione declared as they sat in the empty Gryffindor common room. Why would Malfoy stay when everyone else is leaving? Unless he's planning something. Like another attack, Ron nodded grimly. You think Malfoy's the heir of Slytherin? Harry asked. After the confrontation on the stairs, he'd begun to wonder himself. Think about it, Hermione said, ticking points off on her fingers. 1. He's in Slytherin. 2. He hates Muggleborns. 3. His whole family has been in Slytherin for generations. 4. His father clearly knows something about the chamber, remember what he said in Nocturne Alley? And 5, Ron added, he's a foul, evil little cockroach who'd love to see us all kicked out of Hogwarts. But how do we prove it? Harry asked. Hermione bit her lip, then said slowly, there might be a way, but it would be difficult, and dangerous. We'd be breaking about 50 school rules, and if we're caught. If it helps catch the heir and stop these attacks, Harry said firmly, I don't care about rules. What's your idea? Ron pressed. Polyjuice potion. What's that? It transforms you into somebody else. Think about it. We could change into 3 Slytherins, sneak into their common room, and Malfoy might tell us if he's the heir. Ron and Harry stared at her, amazed. That's brilliant, Hermione. But it's incredibly complicated, she warned. And the book with the recipe is in the restricted section of the library. Harry grinned. Leave that to me. The next day, during defense against the dark arts, Harry approached Lockhart after class with a forged note requesting permission to check out most Patenti potions from the restricted section, for background reading. I don't think anyone will question a note from me, Lockhart said, scribbling his elaborate signature without even reading the title. But, Harry, a quick word. Harry, eager to escape, nodded reluctantly. I've noticed you've been avoiding our private lessons, Lockhart said, his smile fixed but his eyes serious. Given recent events, the attacks, the threatening messages specifically targeting you, don't you think it would be wise to learn how to better manage your unique abilities? I'm managing fine, Professor. Are you? Lockhart raised an eyebrow. I heard about the bludger incident. Your immunity failed you there, didn't it? Harry tensed. How did you know about that? Word travels fast when it involves the unbreakable one showing vulnerability, Lockhart said smoothly. I could help you, Harry. I've dealt with many unusual magical conditions in my travels. Perhaps your immunity could be strengthened with proper training. Thanks, but no thanks, Harry said firmly, taking the signed note. I need to go. Lockhart's smile tightened. Very well. But my door is always open. And Harry? His voice dropped. Be careful. The monster that haunts this castle can hurt even those who believe themselves invincible. Harry hurried from the classroom, unsettled by Lockhart's warning. Was it possible the pompous professor actually knew something useful? It seemed unlikely, given his performance with the Pixies and at the Dueling Club, but his specific mention of Harry's immunity failing against the bludger was concerning. With Lockhart's note, Hermione easily obtained most patenti potions from the library. They retreated to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, the most secure place to brew the potion, since no one ever went there due to the ghost's constant wailing. "This is the most complicated potion I've ever seen," Hermione said, scanning the recipe. "Lacewing flies, leeches, fluxweed, knotgrass, some of these will be hard to get. And look, we need a bit of whoever we're changing into." "Excuse me?" Ron said sharply. "What do you mean, a bit of whoever we're changing into? I'm not drinking anything with crab's toenails in it." "We don't need toenails," Hermione said impatiently. "Just hair will do. And the potion will take about a month to brew, so we need to start immediately." "A month?" Harry said. "But Hermione, if Malfoy is the heir, he could attack half the Muggleborns in the school by then." "I know," Hermione said grimly. "But it's the only plan we've got." With Christmas approaching, the castle emptied rapidly. Harry, Ron, and Hermione used the opportunity to gather most of the ingredients from the student cupboard, though Hermione had to sneak into Snape's private stores for the rarer components. The potion bubbled steadily in Myrtle's bathroom, giving off foul odors that the ghost complained about constantly. On Christmas morning, Harry was awakened by Ron throwing his pillow at him. "Wake up! Presents!" Harry reached for his glasses and looked at the foot of his bed, where a small pile of packages had appeared. He had more gifts than last year, presents from Ron, Hermione, Hagrid, and Mrs. Weasley, who had sent him another hand-knitted sweater and a large plum cake. The last package was small and wrapped in plain brown paper. There was no tag identifying the sender. Harry unwrapped it cautiously to find a small crystal vial containing a silvery liquid that seemed to glow faintly. "What's that?" Ron asked, his mouth full of chocolate from his own gifts. "I don't know," Harry said, turning the vial in his fingers. A small note had fallen out with the vial, for the unbreakable one: "When immunity fails, this ancient potion strengthens natural protections. Use it only in dire need." "A friend, blimey," Ron breathed. "That looks valuable. But who sent it?" "I don't know," Harry repeated, unsettled. "A friend could be anyone, or it could be a trap." "We should show it to Hermione," Ron decided. "She'll know what to do." When Hermione joined them in the common room, she examined the vial with intense concentration. "I've read about potions like this," she said finally. "They're incredibly rare and complex, strengthening drafts for various innate abilities. But Harry, I don't trust this. Anyone could have sent it, including the heir. But if it's legitimate," Harry argued, "it could help if the monster attacks me directly. Or it could be poison designed specifically to overcome your immunity," Hermione countered. "We should give it to Professor McGonagall." In the end, they compromised. Harry would keep the potion but promised not to use it unless they could verify its authenticity or face a truly desperate situation. The Great Hall looked magnificent for Christmas dinner, with 12 towering Christmas trees, thick streamers of holly and mistletoe crisscrossing the ceiling, and warm, dry snow falling from above that vanished before it reached their heads. With so few students remaining, all 4 house tables had been pushed together into one large table where teachers and students sat together. Harry, Ron, and Hermione had barely sat down when Malfoy sneered from across the table, "Heard you're staying for the holidays, Potter. Too scared to go home with the monster after you?" "Shut it, Malfoy," Ron snapped. "At least Harry's got somewhere he could go." Malfoy's pale face flushed. "The Malfoy Manor is 10 times the size of whatever hovel your family lives in, Weasley." "Boys," Professor McGonagall warned from nearby. "It's Christmas. Let's maintain some civility." The rest of the meal passed with tense glares between the Gryffindors and Slytherins, but no further confrontations. As they left the Great Hall, Hermione pulled Harry and Ron into an alcove. "The potion's almost ready," she whispered excitedly. We just need to figure out how to get hairs from Crabbe, Goyle, and Millicent Bulstrode. And make sure the real ones don't show up while we're interrogating Malfoy. I've got a plan for that, Harry said. Sleeping draft in chocolate cakes. We leave them somewhere Crabbe and Goyle will find them, those two eat anything not nailed down. That's, actually brilliant, Hermione admitted. But what about Bulstrode? Harry grimaced. About that. I've been thinking. It's risky for you to go, Hermione. You're Muggle-born, what if Malfoy says something or does something to you? I can handle Malfoy, Hermione said indignantly. I know you can, Harry assured her. But what if we just do two of us? Ron and me as Crabbe and Goyle? It'll be less suspicious than three of them suddenly hanging around together asking weird questions. After some argument, Hermione reluctantly agreed to stay behind and keep watch over the unconscious Slytherins once they were drugged. That evening, Harry and Ron left chocolate cakes injected with sleeping draught on the banister of a staircase Crabbe and Goyle frequently used. Hiding behind a suit of armor, they watched as the two Slytherins discovered the treats, devoured them in seconds, and promptly collapsed in a snoring heap. They dragged the unconscious boys into a broom closet, plucked hairs from their heads, and stole their shoes. Their own would never fit Crabbe and Goyle's large feet. Racing back to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, they found Hermione giving the potion final stirs. Did you get the hairs? She asked anxiously. Harry showed her the thick, bristly strands. Perfect. And their shoes too. Hermione ladled the thick, mud-like potion into 3 glasses, then dropped the hairs into 2 of them. The potions hissed loudly and began to change color, Goyle's turning the khaki color of a booger, Crabbe's a dark, murky brown. Ugh, essence of Crabbe, Ron groaned, looking at his glass in disgust. We'd better move to separate stalls, Hermione advised. You'll need more room once you transform. Harry and Ron each entered a toilet stall, preparing to drink the repulsive concoctions. Ready? Harry called. Ready, Ron answered. 1, 2, 3. Harry drank the potion in 2 large gulps. It tasted like overcooked cabbage. Immediately, his inside started writhing, and a burning sensation spread from his stomach to his fingertips. He fell to all fours as his skin bubbled like hot wax, his hands thickened, his shoulders stretched painfully, and his robes ripped as his chest expanded. As suddenly as it had started, the transformation stopped. Harry stood up, now several inches taller and considerably broader. He opened the stall door and saw Goyle looking back at him from the mirror. Ron, he called, his voice now a deep grunt. The door to his right opened, and Crabbe stepped out, looking as stunned as Harry felt. This is unbelievable, Ron said, approaching the mirror to examine his flat nose and pudding bowl haircut. We'd better get going, Harry said, checking his watch. We've only got an hour before we change back. They quickly changed into the larger Slytherin robes and shoes they'd brought, then headed for the door. Good luck. Hermione called from her stall. And don't forget, find out if Malfoy's the heir and what the monster is. Navigating the castle as Crabbe and Goyle proved challenging. Their lumbering bodies moved differently, and Harry kept banging his knuckles on the walls, unused to Goyle's gorilla-like arms. Where is the Slytherin common room, anyway? Ron asked as they descended toward the dungeons. I don't know exactly, but it's somewhere down here. They wandered the chilly corridors, looking for another student who might lead them there, when a voice called from behind them. There you are. Malfoy was strutting toward them. Have you two been pigging out in the Great Hall all this time? I've been looking for you. Yeah, Harry grunted, trying to sound like Goyle. Well, come on then, Malfoy said impatiently. I want to show you something funny. He led them through a maze of stone corridors, finally stopping at a stretch of bare, damp wall. Pure blood, Malfoy said, and a hidden stone door slid open. The Slytherin common room was a long, low underground room with rough stone walls and greenish lamps hanging from chains. A fire crackled under an elaborately carved mantelpiece, around which several Slytherins were sitting in high-backed chairs. Malfoy led them to empty chairs away from the fire. "Wait till you see this," he said, pulling out a newspaper clipping. "Father just sent it to me." It was from the Daily Prophet, detailing an inquiry at the Ministry of Magic about Mr. Weasley's flying car incident. Malfoy read it aloud, laughing at Ron's father's small fine and potential disciplinary action. "And that's not all," Malfoy continued gleefully. "Father says Weasley's obsession with Muggles will be his downfall. As if the family could sink any lower. You know their house. It's barely more than a pigsty. Blood traitors, the lot of them." Harry glanced at Ron, whose crab face was contorted with fury. He kicked him hard under the chair. "What's wrong with you, Crab?" Malfoy asked. "Stomachache," Ron grunted. "Well, go to the hospital wing then. And you too," Malfoy leaned forward, suddenly serious, "need to start acting smarter. People will wonder if you're hanging around Potter too much." "Why would we hang around Potter?" Harry asked quickly. "Well, the Unbreakable One is everyone's favorite celebrity these days, isn't he?" Malfoy sneered. "Everyone's desperate to see if it's true, whether he really can't be hurt." "Is it true?" Harry asked, trying to sound like a curious Goyle. "Of course not," Malfoy scoffed. "No one's completely immune to everything. It's just some weird fluke from surviving the Dark Lord's attack. Father says there are plenty of ways to harm someone like Potter, you just need to know the right kind of magic." Harry and Ron exchanged glances. "Like what?" Harry pressed. Malfoy shrugged. "Father won't tell me exactly. Says I don't need to know yet. But he did say the Chamber of Secrets was opened before, 50 years ago. Last time, a mudblood died. It's only a matter of time before another one's killed this time." "Do you know who opened it?" Ron asked eagerly. "You know I don't, Crab," Malfoy said irritably. "I told you yesterday. Father won't tell me who it was last time, just that they were expelled. But he says the school needs to be rid of all the mudblood filth, and the heir is doing Salazar Slytherin's noble work." "What about the monster?" Harry asked. "Any idea what it is?" Malfoy narrowed his eyes. "Why all these questions? Losing your memory as well as your brain, Goyle?" "Just curious," Harry mumbled. "Well, stop it. It doesn't suit you." Malfoy stretched lazily in his chair. "Father says to keep my head down and let the heir get on with it. The last thing we need is for anyone to know we're involved." "Involved?" Harry repeated sharply. "Are you involved in the attacks?" Malfoy snorted. "Of course not, you idiot. But Father's doing his part to help from the outside. Why do you think Dumbledore's been suspended from the International Confederation of Wizards? Father's been lobbying against him for years. And with these attacks, it's the perfect opportunity to get rid of him for good." Harry felt his heart sink. Malfoy wasn't the heir, he didn't even know who the heir was. They'd risked everything for nothing. Then Ron gasped, pointing at Harry's forehead. "Your scar." Harry clapped a hand to his face, feeling normal skin where Goyle's features should be. A glance at Ron showed Crabbe's features melting away too, red hair beginning to sprout from his head. "Your hair!" Harry hissed, jumping to his feet. "Medicine for my stomach." Ron yelped, and they both sprinted for the common room entrance, leaving a bewildered Malfoy behind. They raced through the dungeon corridors, not stopping until they reached Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. By then, they had completely transformed back into themselves, their robes hanging off them like tents. Hermione was waiting anxiously. "Well? Did you find out?" "Malfoy's not the heir," Harry panted, quickly explaining everything they'd learned. "So it was opened before," Hermione said thoughtfully. 50 years ago. And someone died, Ron added grimly. "A Muggle-born." But if Malfoy doesn't know who the heir is, Harry said, frustrated, we're back to square one. Hermione paced the bathroom. Not necessarily. We know more than we did before. The chamber was opened 50 years ago, someone died, the culprit was caught and expelled. The library might have records, Harry suggested. Old Daily Prophets or something. That's where we'll start tomorrow, Hermione decided. For now, let's get back to Gryffindor Tower before anyone notices we're missing. As they left the bathroom, Harry couldn't shake a growing feeling of dread. Whoever had opened the chamber 50 years ago had killed a student. And now, with Harry specifically targeted by the new heir, history seemed poised to repeat itself, but with a new, personal vendetta against the Unbreakable One. For weeks, the trio scoured the library for information about the chamber's previous opening, but found nothing. No articles in old Daily Prophets, no mentions in Hogwarts, a history, not even rumors in old student records. It was as if the incident had been deliberately erased from the school's history. January faded into February, and with no new attacks, the rest of the school began to relax. Students stopped traveling in packs, Peeves grew bored with his song, "Oh, Potter, you rotter," about Harry being the heir, and Ernie Macmillan from Hufflepuff even apologized for suspecting him. The mandrakes needed for the restorative draft to cure the petrified victims were maturing nicely, according to Professor Sprout. Soon, Justin, Colin, Mrs. Norris, and nearly headless Nick would be revived and could identify their attacker. As long as the heir doesn't strike again before then, Ron said optimistically. Maybe they've given up. Realized you're too hard to kill and decided to lay low. But Harry couldn't shake his unease. The monster was still out there, and so was the heir. He sometimes heard the murderous voice in the walls late at night, though heeding Dumbledore's warning, he never followed it alone, instead waking Ron and reporting it to Percy, who patrolled the corridors as a prefect. Valentine's Day brought an unwelcome distraction when Lockhart decided to boost morale by decorating the Great Hall with large, lurid pink flowers and heart-shaped confetti falling from the ceiling. Worse, he hired a dozen surly-looking dwarfs to dress as cupids and deliver valentines throughout the school. One particularly grim-faced dwarf cornered Harry outside Charms, determined to deliver a musical valentine. Despite Harry's attempts to escape, the dwarf tackled him, splitting his bag and spilling its contents across the floor just as the singing valentine was delivered in front of a crowd of laughing first-years. His eyes are as green as a fresh pickled toad, his hair is as dark as a blackboard. I wish he was mine, he's really divine, the unbreakable one who conquered the Dark Lord. Mortified, Harry tried to laugh it off as he gathered his scattered possessions. To his horror, Malfoy had snatched up his old diary, the one Ginny Weasley had been writing in since the start of term, which Harry had found discarded in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom the week before. "Give that back," Harry said quietly. "Wonder what Potter's written in this?" Malfoy taunted, holding up the small black book. The corridor fell silent. Harry didn't care about the diary's contents, it appeared blank when he'd found it, but something about it made him uneasy. The way it had been thrown away in a flooded bathroom, the fact that it had once belonged to Ginny, who had been acting strangely all year. "Hand it over, Malfoy," Percy Weasley said sternly, arriving on the scene. "When I've had a look," Malfoy sneered, waving the diary tauntingly. Harry, his patience gone, pulled out his wand. Expelliarmus. The diary shot out of Malfoy's hand and into the air. Ron, grinning, caught it neatly. "Harry!" Percy said loudly. "No magic in the corridors. I'll have to report this." But Harry didn't care. He took the diary from Ron and stuffed it into his repaired bag, relieved to have it back though not entirely sure why. That night in his dormitory, while his roommates slept, Harry examined the diary more closely. The name, T.M. Riddle, was faded on the first page, and the date indicated it was 50 years old, the same time the chamber was last opened. Could be a coincidence, Harry muttered to himself, flipping through the blank pages. On impulse, he dipped his quill in ink and wrote on the first page, "My name is Harry Potter." To his astonishment, the ink shone brightly on the page, then seemed to be sucked into the paper, vanishing completely. Then, oozing back out of the page, in his very own ink, came words Harry had never written. "Hello, Harry Potter. My name is Tom Riddle. How did you come by my diary?" Harry stared at the words, his heart racing. The diary was writing back to him. After a moment's hesitation, he responded, "Someone tried to flush it down a toilet." The reply came quickly, "Lucky that I recorded my memories in some more lasting way than ink. But I always knew there would be those who would not want this diary read." "What do you mean?" Harry wrote, curiosity overcoming caution. "I mean that this diary holds memories of terrible things. Things that were covered up. Things that happened at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry." Harry's pulse quickened. "That's where I am now. Terrible things are happening here too. Do you know anything about the Chamber of Secrets?" There was a pause, the ink seemingly hesitating on the page. Then, "Of course I know about the Chamber of Secrets. In my day, they told us it was a legend, that it did not exist. But this was a lie. In my 5th year, the chamber was opened and the monster attacked several students, finally killing one. I caught the person who'd opened the chamber and he was expelled. But the headmaster, Professor Dippet, ashamed that such a thing had happened at Hogwarts, forbade me to tell the truth. They gave me a nice, shiny, engraved trophy for my trouble and warned me to keep my mouth shut. But I knew it could happen again. The monster lived on, and the one who had the power to release it was not imprisoned." Harry nearly knocked over his ink bottle in excitement. "It's happening again now. There have been 3 attacks and no one knows who's behind them. Who was it last time?" "I can show you, if you like," came Riddle's reply. "You don't have to take my word for it. I can take you inside my memory of the night when I caught him." Harry hesitated only briefly before writing, "Okay." The pages of the diary began to blow as though caught in a high wind, stopping at June 13th. The little square for June 13th seemed to have turned into a minuscule television screen. Harry, hardly daring to believe what he was seeing, lifted the book to press his eye against the window, and before he knew what was happening, he was tilting forward, falling through the page into a whirl of color and shadow. He found himself standing in a circular room, Dumbledore's office, but different. A wizened, frail-looking wizard with only a few wisps of hair was sitting behind the desk, reading a letter by candlelight. This, Harry realized, must be Professor Dippet, the headmaster before Dumbledore. A knock came at the door, and a tall, black-haired boy of about 16 entered. A silver prefect's badge gleamed on his chest. "Ah, Riddle," the headmaster said. "You wanted to see me, Professor Dippet?" asked Riddle, looking nervous. "Sit down," Dippet indicated. "I've just been reading the letter you sent me." "Oh," said Riddle, sitting down and gripping his hands together tightly. "My dear boy," Dippet said kindly, "I cannot possibly let you stay at school over the summer. Surely you want to go home for the holidays?" "No," Riddle said at once. "I'd much rather stay at Hogwarts than go back to that. You live in a Muggle orphanage during the holidays, I believe?" Dippet asked curiously. "Yes, sir," Riddle said, reddening slightly. "You are Muggle-born?" "Half-blood, sir," Riddle replied. "Muggle father, which mother? And are both your parents?" "My mother died just after I was born, sir. They told me at the orphanage she lived just long enough to name me, Tom after my father, Marvolo after my grandfather. The thing is, Tom," Dippet sighed, "special arrangements might have been made for you, but in the current circumstances." "You mean all these attacks, sir?" Riddle asked, and Harry's heart leapt. "Precisely," the headmaster nodded. "My dear boy, you must see how foolish it would be of me to allow you to remain at the castle when term ends. Particularly in light of the recent tragedy, the death of that poor little girl. You will be safer by far at your orphanage. As a matter of fact, the Ministry of Magic is even now talking about closing the school." We are no nearer locating the source of all this unpleasantness. Riddle's eyes widened. Sir, if the person was caught, if it all stopped, what do you mean? Dip-Pet asked with a squeak in his voice. Riddle, do you mean you know something about these attacks? No, sir, Riddle said quickly, but Harry knew he was lying. Dip-Pet sank back, looking faintly disappointed. You may go, Tom. Riddle slid off his chair and slouched out of the room. Harry followed him down a moving spiral staircase and along the corridors. Riddle stopped suddenly, his head inclined toward a nearby doorway. Harry heard a familiar voice, "It's all over now, Rubius. I'm going to have to turn you in. They're talking about closing Hogwarts if the attacks don't stop." What the I don't think you meant to kill anyone. But monsters don't make good pets. I suppose you just let it out for exercise and, it never killed no one, a much younger, but still recognizable Hagrid protested. Stand aside, Riddle commanded, drawing his wand. Harry watched in horror as the scene unfolded, Riddle confronting Hagrid, accusing him of keeping a monster in a box, Hagrid protesting the creature's innocence, then chaos as the box burst open and an enormous, hairy creature with too many legs scuttled away. Riddle attempted to curse it, but Hagrid knocked him over to protect the creature. The memory ended, and Harry found himself sitting on his bed with the diary open on his lap. Hagrid, he whispered, stunned. Hagrid opened the Chamber of Secrets. It seemed impossible, yet the memory had been so vivid, so convincing. Hagrid's well-known love for dangerous creatures, his mysterious expulsion from Hogwarts, his secrecy about his past. Harry closed the diary, his mind racing. Should he tell Ron and Hermione? Should he confront Hagrid? The monster Riddle had exposed was clearly some kind of giant spider, not a snake, as Dumbledore had suggested. Had the headmaster been wrong? Or was Riddle's memory somehow misleading? Unable to sleep, Harry slipped the diary under his pillow, determined to discuss it with his friends in the morning. But when he woke, the diary was gone, stolen from his bedside table while he slept, along with the mysterious silver potion he'd received at Christmas. The news of the theft shook Harry deeply. Someone had gone through his personal belongings, someone who knew about both the diary and the potion. Someone who didn't want him to have either. It must be a Gryffindor, Hermione whispered as they discussed the theft in the empty common room. Nobody else knows our password. But who? Ron asked. And why take both the diary and the potion? Harry had a chilling thought. What if they're connected somehow? The diary showed me a memory from 50 years ago, exactly when the chamber was last opened. And the potion was supposedly designed to strengthen my immunity when it fails. You think the heir stole them? Hermione gasped. It makes sense. The diary could expose them, and the potion could protect me from their monster. For the next several weeks, Harry watched his fellow Gryffindors closely for any suspicious behavior, but noticed nothing unusual, except perhaps Ginny Weasley, who seemed paler and more withdrawn than ever. But he couldn't imagine the shy first year being the heir of Slytherin or having the power to control a monster that could petrify people. The Easter holidays arrived, and second years were given something new to worry about, selecting subjects for their third year. Hermione signed up for everything, while Harry and Ron chose care of magical creatures and divination, hoping for easy options. With no new attacks for nearly 4 months, the atmosphere in the castle lightened considerably. The mandrakes were nearly ready for cutting, according to Professor Sprout, which meant the petrified victims would soon be revived and could identify their attacker. The morning of the Gryffindor-Hufflepuff Quidditch match, Harry was heading back to the dormitory to retrieve his broomstick when he heard it again, the voice, that cold, murderous voice, "Kill this time, let me rip, tear." He froze, heart pounding. Then he remembered, the voice was moving through the pipes. It was a snake. And Hermione had just rushed off to the library with a sudden realization. Ron! Harry grabbed his friend's arm. I just heard the voice again, the snake. And I think Hermione's figured something out. We need to get to the library now. They sprinted through the corridors, skidding around corners, ignoring Filch's shouts about running in the halls. But as they approached the library, Professor McGonagall's magically amplified voice echoed through the corridors, "All students are to return to their house dormitories at once. All teachers return to the staff room. Immediately, please." "Another attack," Ron whispered, his face pale. "You don't think?" "Hermione," Harry said, dread settling like ice in his stomach. "Come on." Instead of heading to Gryffindor Tower, they ran toward the staff room, arriving just as the teachers were gathering. They hid in a wardrobe, listening through a crack as McGonagall addressed the staff. "It has happened," she told the silent staff room. "A student has been taken by the monster. Right into the chamber itself." Professor Flitwick squeaked in horror. Snape gripped the back of a chair, his knuckles white. "How can you be sure?" he asked. "The heir of Slytherin," McGonagall said, her face ashen, left another message. "Right underneath the first one. Her skeleton will lie in the chamber forever." Professor Sprout clapped her hands to her mouth. "Who is it?" she whispered. "Ginny Weasley," McGonagall replied. Ron slid silently to the wardrobe floor beside Harry in a dead faint. After the teachers dispersed to inform their houses, Harry dragged Ron from the wardrobe and revived him with a quick renervate he'd learned from Hermione. "Ginny," Ron moaned. "Not Ginny. We have to do something," Harry said firmly. "We know more about the chamber than the teachers do." "Like what?" Ron asked desperately. "We know it was supposedly Hagrid last time. We should start by asking him what really happened 50 years ago." They were halfway to Hagrid's hut when Harry spotted something lying on the ground near the castle entrance, a small, cracked hand mirror. Picking it up, he recognized it as Hermione's. "She must have dropped it," Ron said. Harry turned it over in his hands, then noticed something clutched in the mirror's handle, a crumpled piece of paper. He carefully extracted it, unfolded the damp parchment, and read Hermione's neat handwriting. "Of the many fearsome beasts that roam our land, none is more deadly than the basilisk, known as the king of serpents. This snake, which may reach gigantic size and live for hundreds of years, is born from a chicken egg, hatched beneath a toad. Its methods of killing are most wondrous, for aside from its deadly and venomous fangs, the basilisk has a murderous stare, and all who are fixed with the beam of its eye shall suffer instant death." Beneath this, in Hermione's hand, was written a single word, "Pipes." "Ron," Harry breathed, "this is it. The monster in the chamber is a basilisk, a giant snake. That's why I can hear it speak, I'm a Parselmouth." "But it hasn't killed anyone," Ron pointed out. "Because no one looked it directly in the eye," Harry realized. "Colin saw it through his camera. Justin must have seen it through nearly headless Nick. Nick got the full blast, but he's already dead so he couldn't die again. Mrs. Norris, there was water on the floor that night. She must have seen its reflection. And Hermione." Ron held up the mirror. "She was using this to look around corners. The crowing roosters Hagrid mentioned, basilisks flee before their crowing. The spiders escaping the castle, spiders flee before the basilisk. It all fits." Ron grabbed Harry's arm. "But how's it getting around? A giant snake wouldn't exactly blend in." "Pipes," Harry pointed to Hermione's note. "It's using the plumbing. That's why I've been hearing the voice in the walls." "The entrance to the chamber," Ron said slowly. "What if it's in a bathroom?" "What if it's in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom?" Harry finished. "Remember, a girl died when the chamber was opened 50 years ago. What if that girl never left the bathroom?" They raced back to the castle, intending to share their discovery with Professor McGonagall, but found the staff room empty. An announcement echoed through the corridors: all students were to remain in their dormitories, all staff in the staff room. "They're going to close the school," Ron said hollowly. "And Ginny." Harry made a decision. "We can't wait for the teachers. We need to go to Myrtle's bathroom now, find the entrance to the chamber ourselves." "But the basilisk," Harry pulled out the mirror he'd found. "We'll use this to look around corners." "And Ron. I'm immune to most things. Maybe that includes a basilisk stare." "You can't risk that." Ron protested. "I have to." Harry's voice was firm. "It's Ginny down there. And whoever took her also stole my diary and that potion. There's a connection, I'm sure of it." As they turned to leave, a voice called from behind them. "And where do you two think you're going?" Lockhart stood there, his usual dazzling smile nowhere to be seen. He looked harried, his hair uncombed, his robes thrown on hastily, as if he'd been in the middle of packing. "Professor," Harry said, thinking quickly. "We were just coming to find you. We have information about the Chamber of Secrets." Lockhart's face tightened. "I'm rather busy at the moment, Potter. Some other time perhaps. You're going to run away?" Ron said incredulously, noticing the half-packed trunk visible in Lockhart's office behind him. "After all that stuff you did in your books?" "Books can be misleading," Lockhart said delicately. "You wrote them?" Harry exclaimed. "My dear boy," Lockhart straightened up, looking annoyed, "use your common sense. My books wouldn't have sold half as well if people didn't think I'd done all those things. No one wants to read about some ugly old Armenian warlock, even if he did save a village from werewolves. He'd look dreadful on the front cover. No dress sense at all. So you've just been taking credit for what other wizards have done?" Harry asked, stunned despite his suspicions about Lockhart's competence. Harry, Lockhart shook his head impatiently, "It's not nearly as simple as that. There was work involved. I had to track these people down, ask them exactly how they managed to do what they did, then put a memory charm on them so they wouldn't remember doing it. It's been a lot of work, Harry. It's not all book signings and publicity photos, you know." He banged the lids of his trunks shut. "Fame's a fickle friend, Harry. Much like that immunity of yours, useful until it fails you at a crucial moment. I suspected all along it had its limits. And I certainly don't intend to stick around to see what happens when a basilisk encounters the unbreakable one." Harry blinked. "You know about the basilisk?" "Of course I know," Lockhart snapped. "I'm not a complete fool, despite what Snape might say. The roosters being killed, the petrifications rather than deaths, the way the victims were found. A competent defense teacher recognizes the signs. Then you can help us," Harry exclaimed. "Ginny Weasley has been taken into the chamber. We know where the entrance is, Moaning Myrtle's bathroom." Lockhart paled. "That's most unfortunate. But I really must be going. You're the defense against the dark arts teacher." Ron shouted. "You can't go now. I must say, when I took the job, there was nothing in the contract about." Harry drew his wand. "You're coming with us, Professor. Either to help, or so we can keep an eye on you until we find a real teacher." Lockhart eyed the wand nervously. Now, Harry. You wouldn't attack a teacher, would you? Even with your remarkable resilience, that's still against school rules." "Watch me," Harry said coldly. They marched Lockhart to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom at one point. The ghost was sitting on the cistern of her usual toilet, picking moodily at a spot on her chin. "Oh, it's you," she said when she saw Harry. "What do you want this time?" "To ask how you died," Harry said directly. Myrtle looked suddenly flattered, her whole aspect changing at once. "Oh, it was dreadful," she said with relish. "It happened right in here. I died in this very stall. I remember it so well. I'd hidden because Olive Hornby was teasing me about my glasses. The door was locked, and I was crying, and then I heard somebody come in. They said something funny. A different language, I think it was. Anyway, what really got me was that it was a boy speaking. So I unlocked the door, to tell him to go and use his own toilet, and then," Myrtle swelled importantly, her face shining. "I died." "How?" Harry asked. No idea, Myrtle said in hushed tones. I just remember seeing a pair of great, big, yellow eyes. My whole body sort of seized up, and then I was floating away. She looked dreamily at Harry. And then I came back again. I was determined to haunt Olive Hornby, you see. Oh, she was sorry she'd ever laughed at my glasses. Where exactly did you see the eyes? Harry asked. Somewhere there, Myrtle waved vaguely toward the sink opposite her toilet. Harry and Ron hurried over to examine it. It looked like an ordinary sink, but when Harry peered closely at the pipes underneath, he noticed something etched on the side of one of the copper taps, a tiny snake. That tap's never worked, Myrtle said brightly when she noticed them looking. Harry, Ron murmured, say something in Parcel tongue. Harry stared at the snake carving, trying to imagine it was real. Open up, he said, but the words came out in English. English, Ron said. Harry focused harder, visualizing the snake moving, alive. Open, he said again, but this time a strange hissing sound escaped him. At once the tap glowed with a brilliant white light and began to spin. Next second, the sink began to move. The sink, in fact, sank, right out of sight, leaving a large pipe exposed, wide enough for a man to slide into. I'm going down there, Harry announced. Me too, Ron said firmly. They both looked at Lockhart, who had backed against the wall, his face ashen. You first, Harry said, prodding him with his wand. Boys, Lockhart pleaded, boys, what good will it do? I really don't think. Harry jabbed his wand harder into Lockhart's back, and the professor slid his legs into the pipe reluctantly. I really don't think this is a good idea, but Ron gave him a push, and he slid out of sight. Harry followed next, sitting on the edge of the pipe and pushing off. It was like rushing down an endless, slimy, dark slide. He could see other pipes branching off in all directions, but none as large as the one they were in, which twisted and turned, sloping steeply downward. He knew he must be miles under the school, deep beneath the dungeons. Finally, the pipe leveled out, and Harry shot out of the end with a wet thud, landing on a damp stone floor. Ron came whizzing out seconds later. We must be miles under the school, Ron said, his voice echoing in the dark tunnel. Under the lake, probably, Harry agreed, wiping slime off his glasses. Lumos, Harry muttered, lighting his wand. Come on, he said to Ron and the trembling Lockhart, setting off down the tunnel. The floor was littered with small animal bones. As they rounded a bend, Ron suddenly grabbed Harry's shoulder. Harry, there's something up there. They froze, watching. Harry could just see the outline of something huge and curved, lying across the tunnel. It wasn't moving. Maybe it's asleep, Harry breathed, holding up Hermione's mirror to peer around the corner safely. But as they inched closer, the light revealed what it was, an enormous snakeskin, vivid, poisonous green, lying curled and empty across the tunnel floor. The creature that had shed it must have been at least 20 feet long. Blimey, Ron whispered weakly. Then, without warning, Lockhart's knees gave way. He crumpled to the ground, then quickly scrambled to his feet, diving at Ron and wrestling his wand from his grip. The adventure ends here, boys, he said, panting. I'll take a bit of this skin back up to the school, tell them I was too late to save the girl, and that you two tragically lost your minds at the sight of her mangled body. Say goodbye to your memories. He raised Ron's spellotaped wand high over his head and yelled, Obliviate. The wand exploded with the force of a small bomb. Harry flung his arms over his head and ran, slipping over the snakeskin, out of the way of great chunks of tunnel ceiling that were thundering to the floor. Next moment, he was standing alone, gazing at a solid wall of broken rock. Ron, he shouted. Are you okay? I'm here. Ron's muffled voice came from behind the rockfall. I'm okay, this gets not, though, he got blasted by my wand. There was a dull thud and a loud, ow. It sounded as though Ron had just kicked Lockhart in the shins. What now? Ron's voice came again, sounding desperate. We can't get through, it'll take ages. Harry looked at the tunnel ceiling. Huge cracks had appeared in it, and more fragments were still falling. Another collapse could bury them both. Wait there, Harry called to Ron. I'll go on. If I'm not back in an hour. I'll try to shift some of this rock, Ron said, his voice rough with emotion. So you can get back through. And Harry, I'll find her, Ron, Harry promised. I'll bring her back. And with that, he set off alone past the giant snakeskin, the tunnel turning and turning again, every nerve in his body tingling unpleasantly. He wished Ron was with him, but knew he had to continue alone. At last, he reached a solid wall on which two entwined serpents were carved, their eyes set with great, glinting emeralds. Harry approached, his throat dry. These weren't just carvings, they looked almost alive, their emerald eyes following his movements. Open, he said, in a low, hissing whisper. The serpents parted as the wall cracked open, the halves slid smoothly out of sight, and Harry, shaking from head to foot, walked inside. He was standing at the end of a long, dimly lit chamber. Towering stone pillars entwined with more carved serpents rose to support a ceiling lost in darkness, casting long, black shadows through the odd, greenish gloom that filled the place. His heart beating very fast, Harry stood listening to the chill silence. Could the basilisk be lurking in a shadowy corner, behind a pillar? And where was Ginny? He pulled out Hermione's mirror, using it to check ahead of him as he moved forward between the serpentine columns. As he reached the last pair of pillars, a statue high as the chamber itself loomed into view, standing against the back wall, the ancient, monkey-like face of Salazar Slytherin. And between the statue's feet, face down, lay a small, black-robed figure with flaming red hair. Ginny! Harry muttered, sprinting to her and dropping to his knees. Ginny, don't be dead, please don't be dead. He flung his wand aside, grabbed Ginny's shoulders, and turned her over. Her face was white as marble, and as cold, yet her eyes were closed, so she wasn't petrified. But then she must be, she won't wake, said a soft voice. Harry jumped and spun around on his knees. A tall, black-haired boy was leaning against the nearest pillar, watching. He was strangely blurred around the edges, as though Harry were looking at him through a misted window. But there was no mistaking him. Tom Riddle. Riddle nodded, not taking his eyes off Harry's face. What do you mean, she won't wake? Harry said desperately. She's not. She's still alive, said Riddle. But only just. Harry stared at him. Tom Riddle had been at Hogwarts 50 years ago, yet here he stood, a weird, misty light shining about him, not a day older than 16. Are you a ghost? Harry asked uncertainly. A memory, Riddle replied quietly. Preserved in a diary for 50 years. He pointed toward the floor near the statue's giant toes. Lying open there was the little black diary Harry had found in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom and which had subsequently been stolen from his dormitory. And next to it, gleaming in the dim light, was the crystal vial containing the silvery potion Harry had received for Christmas. I've been waiting a long time for this, Harry Potter, Riddle said softly. For the chance to see you. To speak to you. To test you. Test me? Harry repeated, confused. The unbreakable one, Riddle said, his eyes glittering strangely. The boy who lived. The child who somehow defeated the greatest wizard who ever lived. Why do you care about Voldemort? Harry asked. He was after your time. Voldemort, Riddle said softly, is my past, present, and future, Harry Potter. He pulled Harry's wand from his pocket and began to trace it through the air, writing 3 shimmering words, Tom Marvolo Riddle. Then he waved the wand once, and the letters of his name rearranged themselves. I am Lord Voldemort, you see, he whispered. It was a name I was already using at Hogwarts, to my most intimate friends only, of course. You think I was going to use my filthy muggle father's name forever? I, in whose veins runs the blood of Salazar Slytherin himself, through my mother's side. I, Keep the name of a foul, common muggle, who abandoned me even before I was born, just because he found out his wife was a witch? No, Harry. I fashioned myself a new name, a name I knew wizards everywhere would one day fear to speak, when I had become the greatest sorcerer in the world. Harry stood frozen, his mind reeling. Tom Riddle, the handsome, brilliant student from the diary, was Lord Voldemort as a teenager. You're not, Harry said, his quiet voice full of hatred. Not what? Riddle snapped. Not the greatest sorcerer in the world. Sorry to disappoint you, but the greatest wizard in the world is Albus Dumbledore. Everyone says so. Even when you were strong, you didn't dare try and take over at Hogwarts. Dumbledore saw through you when you were at school and he still frightens you now, wherever you're hiding these days. The smile had gone from Riddle's face, replaced by a very ugly look. Dumbledore's been driven out of this castle by the mere memory of me. He's not as gone as you might think. Harry retorted. Music was coming from somewhere. Riddle whirled around to stare down the empty chamber. The music was growing louder, unearthly and spine-tingling. Then, as the music reached a pitch that shook Harry to his core, flames erupted at the top of the nearest pillar. A crimson bird the size of a swan appeared, singing its ghostly song to the vaulted ceiling. It had a glittering golden tail as long as a peacock's and gleaming golden talons, which were gripping a ragged bundle. A second later, the bird was flying straight at Harry. It dropped the ragged thing it was carrying at his feet, then landed heavily on his shoulder. Harry recognized it at once, Fawkes, Dumbledore's phoenix. That's a phoenix, Riddle said, staring shrewdly at it. Fawkes. Harry breathed, feeling the bird's golden claws squeeze his shoulder gently. And that, Riddle was now eyeing the ragged thing Fawkes had dropped, that's the old-school sorting hat. So it was. Patched, frayed, and dirty, the sorting hat lay motionless at Harry's feet. Riddle began to laugh, a high, cold laugh that echoed through the chamber. This is what Dumbledore sends his defender. A songbird and an old hat. Do you feel brave, Harry Potter? Do you feel safe now? Harry didn't answer. He didn't see what use Fawkes or the sorting hat could be, but he felt less alone, and ready to fight. Now, Harry, Riddle said, still smiling broadly, I'm going to teach you a little lesson. Let's match the powers of Lord Voldemort, heir of Salazar Slytherin, against famous Harry Potter, the unbreakable one. He turned to the statue and hissed words in Parcel tongue, Speak to me, Slytherin, greatest of the Hogwarts Four. Slytherin's gigantic stone face was moving. The mouth opened wider and wider, to make a huge black hole. And something was stirring inside the statue's mouth. Something was slithering up from its depths. Harry backed away, eyes shut tight, using Hermione's mirror to see where he was going. He heard something huge hit the stone floor of the chamber, the basilisk was loose. Kill him, Riddle commanded in Parcel tongue. The basilisk was moving toward Harry, he could hear its heavy body slithering across the dusty floor. But just as he prepared to run blindly, he heard Fawkes' musical cry again. Opening his eyes a crack but looking only at the floor, Harry saw the phoenix soaring around the basilisk's head, and the serpent was snapping furiously at him with fangs long and thin as sabers. Fawkes dived, his long golden beak sinking out of sight, and a sudden shower of dark blood spattered the floor. The snake's tail thrashed, narrowly missing Harry. He looked up at the mirror and saw something incredible, the basilisk's eyes, both of them, had been punctured by Fawkes, and blood was streaming to the floor. The serpent was blinded. No! Riddle screamed. Leave the bird. Leave the bird. The boy is behind you. You can still smell him. Kill him. The blinded serpent swayed, confused, but still deadly. Fawkes circled its head, piping his eerie song, jabbing at its scaled snout. Something went wrong with this response, please try again. Begin writing the following chapter. Make to the end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.